And I will call the meeting of our workshop of the school board to order at 5:05 p.m. So first of all, we have all board members in attendance and Superintendent Kirsten Anderson. So we will stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So because this is a workshop and committee of the whole board, we don't make any changes to the agenda. First up, we have information about our SPED recovery services. So we have Marcia Walker, who is our special education director, and Brittany Keel,
Early childhood director.
Early childhood director, thank you. So go ahead and fill us in.
I'm going to go ahead and attempt to share my screen. It's always a good thing when the technology works. So thank you, Superintendent Anderson, Chair Ostendorf, and board members for letting us be here today to talk about the COVID recovery services that have occurred really over the last 2.5 years
I don't hear very well.
in the school district. I will speak. I have a soft voice, so I will try to project.
I will try to listen very intently. Thank you.
Before we start the presentation, I was reminded of this quote that for many families, our educators are the most direct line of communication as they navigated these unprecedented times. Source unknown. And our special education team, and I say ours because Brittany is responsible for the staff at Covell, they had frequent communication with our families from the very beginning of the pandemic. And that's why when we put the presentation together, we are going to review what I'm calling the lay of the land. So we are going to review from the very beginning. Our mission statement and our core values. So starting with the 1920 school year. On March 13th, 2020, the governor issued a peacetime emergency. On March 15th, he issued school closures from 3/18 to 3/27. And that was to provide time for educators to get ready for this new landscape of learning that we were going to do virtually. Our special education teams, in collaboration with their general education partners, contacted every family to talk about what distance learning could look like for their child. And did they need a hotspot? Would someone be home to supervise that? What time of day would that look like? What services are we going to be providing? They had these conversations with their families. From the very beginning, they were communicating. And on March 30th, we started distance learning through the remainder of the school year. Distance learning was also provided through extended school year for summer programming. So our special education teachers also worked with their families at Covell and through K through transition age in the district for those students that were eligible for extended school year. And as we move forward with this, I'm trying to when I say lay of the land, it's that we were addressing the potential need that could occur from this new way of learning before the needs arrived, before the needs appeared. So moving to the 21-22 school year, the state provided guidance that we were to be ready with 3 different models as a school district, as all the districts in the state of Minnesota. And so it was the distance learning, in-person, and hybrid, and you know that. But the guidance called for every student with an individual education plan that we would write contingency learning plans. So that no matter what model the school district was in, we had already discussed with our families what services would look like. So what would it look like in person? What would it look like distance learning? And what would it look like hybrid? Our special education teachers, again from Cobble and kindergarten all the way up to transition age, contacted every family to develop these contingency learning plans and talk about what services would look like regardless of the model. They also talked with families that elected distance learning for the year, because during that school year, families could choose distance learning and then determine what that would look like. In the spring of that same year, we got additional guidance from the state saying that every student with an individual education plan should be offered the invitation to participate in targeted services in the district. So whatever age level, whatever that looked like. So that for us, for the younger students, it was Summer Blast. And you had programming also at Cobble.
Yep.
And we offered a very robust summer program. So in collaboration with administrators who run Summer Blast. I was new at that time, but we worked together and we offered targeted services to every student. Now, not all families elected to join in, but we had many students that came to targeted services. And if you remember, we offered 2 sessions last summer. And the other part of the conversation we had with our families was the state was calling it that time compensatory services, which is like recovery services. So they called targeted services, general education recovery services, then there was compensatory services, and then students that were eligible for extended school year. We had those conversations with our families. Some students received all 3. They participated in Summer Blast. They also got an extra scoop through compensatory services or recovery services, and they were eligible for extended school year. It was a very robust programming. That brings us to this school year. And for this school year, we got additional guidance from the state. This time it was with the law that was passed. The guidance said no more continuous learning plans, or the CLPs as we called them in special education. We have the acronyms, or the distance learning plans. But the law required that we have full IEP team meetings for every student on an IEP that was early childhood to transition age. And we talk about recovery services.
So when we met as a team, we pulled together the parents, the entire IEP team, and a whole bunch of data. So we had progress on how the students were progressing towards their goals, how they progressed in their general curriculum. There was, were they able to attend or access their programming and services, report card data, any assessment data, and the parent input. And the team all came together to make a decision if the child should receive compensatory services, or if any of those delays, or if the delays, if there were any, had already been recovered. So we looked at all of these things and made a decision really as a team going forward to potentially provide some recovery services. And those could look like things before school, during school, they could be in the summertime, maybe over a break to recoup any services or any progress that the students may have lost during the pandemic or during the break in programming. And those services would be provided by the special education team and could include any of the OT, PT, speech, any of the child services.
So the results were, we held 495 IEP meetings before December 1st in this school district. For some of those students, they also had annual meetings that occurred after December 1st. So there may have been 2 full IEP meetings for some students during this year. Using the IEP decision-making, some guidance that we provided to the special education teachers to go through bullet points in these discussions that they had with families, 62 determinations for recovery services were made. Recovery services could look like additional related services. So additional speech sessions, additional OT sessions. Some recovery services look like an extra scoop of reading or an extra scoop of math. So if they were already receiving reading and math services through their IEP, it would have been proposed to be extended. Like if it was a 30-minute visit, maybe it was 45 minutes. So they were getting more time for that reading and math. Some determinations were adding social work services to mitigate some social emotional learning needs. Determinations for extended school year, and for some of our older scholars, credit recovery. I can tell you that at this time, 40% of the 62 determinations for recovery services have been recovered. Those services have been delivered. The remainder services are either ongoing or will occur this summer. So what I wanted to say is that honestly, we saw students, because we addressed the needs early before they were needs, we were seeing students across the county progressing, again, because we addressed the needs early and we addressed them often. And I want to be just a little indulgent, if I could, to thank our special education teachers. So our exceptional special education teachers, you rose up, if you're listening, they rose up and remained steadfast and consistent through the changing landscape of COVID. We want to publicly honor an extraordinary resilience of our children's learning and well-being in these extraordinary circumstances. And that's all I have. Thank you. Questions?
Do we have any idea, I know you said 400 and some
Or maybe
meetings, but do you know how many students that is?
495 students.
It's 1 per student.
Well, right, but you had said that you had maybe a couple that had multiple meetings because after December 1st, you had
Their annual meeting.
annual meetings. So they would have had 2, or that's not counted in there?
That's not counted in there.
Okay.
495 recovery services meetings occurred before December 1st. Mhm. Yeah. Question.
Do you know, you talked about the summer targeted services last summer, that the students and the IEPs were invited to participate. Do you know, like, rough percentage, how many accepted that invitation, or?
I can get you, I did not run those numbers before this meeting, but I can get you that information.
Yeah, if you did send it to me, and then I'll forward it to the board. And include it in the
Absolutely.
next administrative report section.
I don't know if you can answer this. Special ed is a big part of the school. Programs, teachers, aides, costs. As we look at the state forecast, how far behind is special ed funding from the state and federal level?
Perhaps I could jump in.
Thank you.
It's somewhere between $3 to $3.5 million for Red Wing in terms of what's called the cross subsidy. So that's the difference between the revenue we receive and the expenses because of special education.
3.5 million is what we've determined to be funding that would provide the services that they're demanding and requiring.
Perfectly.
And that's kind of the average, isn't it?
Well, I haven't really compared ourselves with other districts in terms of percentages or anything. We have a relatively high number of students who qualify for special education services. So my guess is that our cross subsidy is higher than most.
I meant that's kind of the average for Redwood. We kind of run,
Yes.
typically it's in between 3 and 3.5 million a year.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. I didn't, yeah, so.
And, we're legally and morally obligated to provide the services. So we're proud to do it.
Yeah.
But it does, I think the state and federal governments need to step up and, pay for those mandated services.
And the reason I ask is we've been talking about this, that we're blue in the face. Educate people around the state, around the country, the funding isn't following the need. And so I'll bring it up at when we have other topics at the regular meeting. I'll make a comment on what we might want to try to do as a board sometime. I don't think it'll help, but it doesn't hurt to hear it. Doesn't sound real good, that phrase, but that's true.
How many case managers are there in Red Wing?
We have
7 early childhood.
I have to do the math. About 40 case managers.
47-ish.
That's K-12.
Or is that including the?
E,
Okay.
yeah.
About
Mhm.
40.
So if you look at the averages, each case manager would have had about 10 of those additional IEP meetings. And it's not just organizing meetings and meeting with families after the first school day. It's also all the paperwork involved and mailing back and forth. And then of course we did the contingency plan, so you multiply that by 3. I mean, it's been a huge burden on our special education.
and in partnership with our general education teachers as well, because they participated in all of those meetings. I think I would say collectively, everyone rose up to address student needs.
I believe it's almost 2 years. It's
Scenario.
been changing our lives forever.
Well, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
When you talk
Appreciate
about
you.
when you talk about the additional services, so like additional therapy times or additional reading and math, is that happening like in the school day, or how do you work that in?
The services that have been recovered have occurred during the school day.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much. Okay. So then we are on to our financial focus. So Ms. Paradis is gonna tell us all the things we need to know.
Give me a minute here. Get my screen shared with you.
And we're looking at January because we are too close to February to look at that, so we're going back to January.
Correct. I just started receiving bank statements for February this morning. All right, so we're going to start with the treasurer's report. for January. Blow this up here a little bit. So what this is it's just showing you that our books tie out to our bank statements. And then the second page also lists the investments we had outstanding as the end of January. Are there any questions on this report?
I got one.
Sure.
Well, maybe it's not the right time to ask it, but I'm looking at our fund balance in the general fund and different things like that. How much ESSER money have we received and how much do we expect to receive in the future? How much do we expect to spend in that?
Can I hold that question until my next report?
Yeah, because I don't know what I should ask here now.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Any other questions? All right, so then I'm going to move on to the budget report as of, again, January 31st. This shows what we've received and expended as of the end of the month. It does show our revised budget, which was approved at the last meeting. For revenue, we had received 36.95% of our budget compared to 38.8 and 38.29. So you can see we're behind on revenue collection, most notably in the federal funds area. And I'll go into that to answer Arlen's question as well. For expenditures, this page only does show, so this is just general fund. We've expended 45.76% of our budget compared to 48.39 and 49.02. So we are spending under, but remember our budget includes assumptions for our unsettled contract negotiations. So as we settle contract negotiations and pay those retro payments due, this will catch up.
So what?
It'll catch up. The percentages will catch up because right now we made an assumption in the budget on what we were going to settle on. We have a couple of contracts coming forward tonight on actual settlements. So we'll have some retro payments coming out that'll catch those salaries up to where we anticipated them being. The second page on this report goes over minor funds, food service, community ed, construction, debt. Again, there is nothing super notable, super out of whack to report there. But to answer Arlen's question, I am going to go to page 5 of my report. The top of it says General Fund Revenue Summary.
Yeah, our page 25.
Okay.
On page 25?
Yeah.
That goes in order.
I'll wait for everyone to find the page.
Budget management analysis, analytics?
Yep. So if we go down to the federal revenue section, you'll see the line that says federal aid through the Department of Ed. In a normal year, about $539,000. Last year with our ESSER funds, it was 2.3 million. This year, we're anticipating it being 2.4 million. We've only received 106,000 of that. We can't draw off those grants until they are fully approved. We just had our first our fully approval of our large ESSER funds came near the end of January. I drew funds near the end of January. They didn't come in until February. So those are starting to catch up, but that is we're behind on federal revenue, and that kind of gives you a flavor of how much ESSER funds are within our budget.
So that'll bump up the revenue portion of your first page on there
Yes.
as the percentage balances out on the settlements.
Correct. And all federal grants are spend and reimburse. So our spending is always ahead of the revenue we're collecting.
So you talked about the approval process. How much of that 2.4 million is budgeted but not necessarily approved versus approved, we just don't have it yet? Like, where's that?
The majority of it is in ESSER 3, which is fully approved.
Okay.
There is one, the pandemic enrollment loss, we're still waiting for budget approval. That's $180,000. And we have a request to revise our application for the homeless grant, which is only $6,000. Right, are there any other questions?
Yeah.
Yep, go
I'll
ahead.
try, and you probably can't, it's not bad, I'm sure, but I'm trying to establish how much of the ESSER money is still due to come to us versus how much of that we've already paid for out of our pocket and expect to get reimbursed as of this report.
I don't have that number in front of me.
Would I be right to assume maybe about half of that is what we spent at this time?
Yes, we're probably getting pretty
So
close
there-
to half.
If you look at what our general fund balance is
Mhm.
to date, if things rolled in the way they are, they might be $1 million better.
We're at least 500,000, maybe
I'm putting
800,000.
assumptions and I,
Yep.
I'm looking at, we got 2.4, we could get 100,000, that's 3, but half the school year we spent 2.4, would be 1.2, and to me comes up over $1 million. I'm just, we could anticipate a higher fund balance as the year goes on.
Not higher fund balance, but balance. Our fund balance is based on our budget, which both ends are budgeted in there already. Both the revenue and the expenses.
Okay, so-
But yeah, our cash balance, if you're looking at the treasurer's
cash
report,
balance
will
of the
improve.
The cash balance of the general fund
Will
at the end of the year could be
higher.
possibly a large, maybe
Cross our
maybe
fingers.
7-figure.
Wonderful, Marty.
No, no, because this hasn't been any fun.
No.
I meant to. Okay.
All right, any other budget
Thank you,
questions?
you did answer my question.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right. Moving on then to the enrollment report, which is after all the budget detail pages. So far, it has enrollment analysis on the top. What page is it in the packet?
Page 33, I think. Yes.
It's
33 of our
that's
packet.
it. It's like this.
No, you missed a color copy.
You like that?
Just don't.
The number's on the right
I
side.
don't see the blue on the next page?
All right, for February, you can see we did have another slight decline in enrollment from 2484 to 2478. When we add in our tuition out students, we are looking at WADMs or weighted ADMs to weighted ADMs for budget. We have a positive variance of almost 12, 11.82 is the light blue about midway through there, so that is good news. This is decreasing though every month. So my guess is we're going to come out a lot closer than 12.
Now, enrolled out and be on that staying consistent from month to month, or is it going up or down?
I do not.
This GECED board member?
I don't have any numbers. Sherry?
We're increasing on an average about 4 students a week.
From Redwood?
No, I don't know that. I know it's about 4 students a week. I haven't looked at where they're from.
But is it accurate to say most of our tuition out is GCED or no?
Most of our tuition out is GCED, but it could be Five Rivers Online. It could be their Setting 4 program. It could be Pathways. It could be Towerville.
Is there a way for future reference, we can get a number, how many are tuition out of our, I'm gonna say out of our district, because I know that's, all of them are technically by the tech, but I'm excluding GC, Five Rivers Online, Tower View, Pathways.
Are you looking for tuition out or are you looking for open enrollment out?
Probably both.
Yeah, correct. Tuition out, we get the aid for. Open enrollment out, the aid goes with them.
All right.
Before the free online portion and all that came about, we were about 3 to 1 out compared to came in. It used to be like 300 out, 100 in. So it'll be interesting to see how that number's changed with the pandemic and all the online versions.
Any other questions on
And I'd be
enrollment?
okay with that as a next month. I'm not looking for it specifically now, but I want to find the trend.
Yep. I have made myself a note. We'll bring it back in April. Other questions?
Is there any way you can put it in this spreadsheet, or will you have?
It'll have to be a separate document, because if I put, this is a big Excel spreadsheet, so if I start, it's gonna move my formulas.
No more cells needed.
Everything just says name.
Mhm. All right, I am gonna actually switch to talking about the levy. So this isn't, is the colors coming through better when I share it? I don't know. I can change all right, we're just gonna go with this and I'm hoping I can show you. So I ran 3 different levy scenarios. You have PDFs of it, so it printed a little better than I can show it on the screen. This will be the graph that is in, I believe, the top left of your PDF. So I ran a straight renewal for taxes payable 2024. So I am assuming whatever we vote for, if we go this November, we're going to delay implementation until the current one expires. So that would be taxes payable.
It's not 23, 24, it's 24.
425. Yep.
So that's your scenario.
That's one scenario. I ran a scenario if we decided to vote at the maximum we levy. And then I did a scenario at 1,500, which would show a decrease. I picked a number. If we want to do a decrease, we can pick other numbers, but that just to show a decrease scenario.
So scenario 1 is the same as what it currently is.
Yes.
Okay.
So budget is the same as it currently is, and it is a dark blue line. You can see that pretty much levels off. If we went for the maximum, it still has a pretty sharp trajectory downward, but it doesn't go quite as far down. And then the reducing it $150 per pupil unit to $1,500 is very close to where we are now. Now I have assumed classroom reductions. So I've assumed reductions for class size in this. So as our class sizes warrant a decrease, I put the decrease for that FTE. So that is in here already. What this shows me is we're not going to be able to levy our way out of our financial crisis, our declining enrollment. We can't levy our way out of our declining enrollment. There are going to have to be further reductions as we go along, no matter what option we choose.
What's the difference between our current levy amount and the maximum?
Currently, we are at $1,650 per pupil unit. Our maximum right now is $1,881.
$230
Per student. So I wanted to share this graph with you. The other graph I wanted to show you is actually the property taxes that we're collecting by the general fund. I think it's on your second page. Yep. So currently, in the current year, the property taxes we're collecting are just right around $9 million. So if we go to then school year 2025, fiscal year 2025, we could still, if we levied the maximum, we are not bringing in $9 million in property tax revenue because it's a per pupil unit figure. That is one of the reasons we see it going like this. Our enrollment right now is projected to decline 20 to 40 students a year continually. So I'm just giving you these figures now to kind of start the conversation. The other data I had is I had Baker Tilly run the tax impact options for these 3 options so we could see what this would be to the property taxpayers. Of course, a straight renewal, there would be no impact. If we decreased it, it would decrease slightly. For example, a $200,000 home would see an approximately $28 per year savings. And if we went to the maximum, a $200,000 home would, it would cost them an extra $43 a year. And this is a snapshot on one tax payable year, and as our property tax authority changes, it could impact what these are. Just starting the conversation on this, I really don't want to get too far down until the legislature adjourns, because there are things in the legislature that could impact what decisions we make. I know there is a bill regarding local optional revenue that's going through the legislature right now that might impact which option we pick. The governor has put forward his proposal with a number of education-related funding. I have not heard what in the Senate have put together in their budget bills, but still to come.
It's a good problem to have, but everybody wants.
But I'm sure
Everybody wants a piece of pie.
Yeah.
Question on the,
Yeah.
on the property tax, you talked about the homes.
Yes.
What's the effect on businesses and farms?
Let me look at my tax.
People that have acreage.
For people that have acreage,
I get that.
correct. So I would need to get the data specifically from them from Baker Tilly. I just did household right now.
Businesses pay a portion too.
Yes, yes.
And the bigger the cost or
The bigger the market value of the
Right.
business.
market value of the business versus the tax rate, so. Sometime down, we should probably have
Yeah.
that information too.
Yeah, when we start narrowing options.
Jackie, just to make sure we're all on the same page, so if you look at the referendum market value for a $200,000 home,
Mm-hmm.
the existing taxes for that home for 2021 are $330.
Correct,
But the current year, it's going down to $302.
correct,
So it's decreasing from 1 year to the
Mhm.
next.
because our enrollment is decreasing.
Okay, there's also another factor that $200,000 house might be a $220,000 house a year later, because when the
Correct.
property values have gone, they're always behind
Mm-hmm.
when they come through and follow that system.
Usually 2 years.
2 years, sorry, you're right, Jim, of course.
2 years tax, but when they're going up, when they're coming down, they're too high too, so either way. Yeah.
We're 1 year behind on Board of Adjustment, but 2 years behind on the tax.
Well, I mean, we've had conversations about on the housing
Mhm.
in the area. We talked about that, we've heard that. I'm just talking, obviously, we don't encompass, the school district is bigger than just Redmond, the city limits of Redmond. So, but the densities in Redmond. And I just took a drive yesterday with Connie and I, up behind Fairview, or not Fairview, Mayo, come down there by Red Wing Avenue, all those houses, all those townhouses up there. You can see them from the road, but you just don't, from the highway, you have no idea how many there. It's like, oh my. And there are people, a number of people. So the housing market appears to be improving in Red Wing. So I just share that. Because then you got the other one, that big apartment building on Tyler Road there, and then those other houses that have been back there for a while, but yeah. And I don't see it stopping. Which is good. It opens up homes for families that are looking for homes, people that want to downsize, they do that, so. Just a comment as, we're thinking about this many homes, but, 2-3 years from now, we may have many more. And we hope that brings, generates more interest in our schools by children coming to town, with families coming with children to town, coming in the school district. Okay, I'm done.
I was looking back at my notes to see, because I think I had written down once that we had talked about having like a demographic study and what that would entail. But then I don't think that that made it onto the, to talk about, like, actual board meeting things. So I'm gonna rewrite that on there.
Is that something that we could check with realtors? They have something like that?
Or would that be part of the educational?
Right, and I think that was one of the reasons
Planner,
we're
yeah,
kind of waiting on, to
education
see if
planner.
that was
I would think
something
they
we
wanna look
included.
I would think they'd want to look at that for long-range planning purposes, so.
One of the three firms did include that work as part of a proposal, the other two did not.
Okay.
We did receive a proposal from Hazel Reinhardt,
Correct.
who was the lead demographer for the state, very highly competent, and it would be a $5,000 charge.
Would that come out of the grant?
Probably not, because all three firms were right around $50,000, which was sort of the max.
So that's an additional $5.
We can figure out where.
We can figure out $5,000.
Yeah, it was really helpful to have that. Like what Mr. Bryant was saying, in terms of how many townhomes are expected. Of course, each type of home yields on average different numbers of kids, you know, and all that kind of factors into it. So we really good information.
We should have, I know at least I haven't seen much anyway, census data coming in from 2020, I believe it is. And whether that's accurate or skewed because of the pandemic would be another thing somebody will look at when they review it. But that would give us a breakdown of certain areas of at that time that may or may not change things. And I think the county should have some different demographics for different areas available to us too, without a lot of effort to get it.
They're changing.
Well, thank you for putting all this together. I'm a graph person, so this really is helpful for me to understand. A fairly interesting and challenging picture that we are going to be tasked with solving.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay.
All right, so we are on to our other topics. We'll talk about this, or, you know, mention it during the regular meeting, but we are scheduled to look at, I think, 8 or so more policies at our next workshop. So just make sure you keep that in mind and leave yourself a little time to look into those.
Is it possible to get those sooner than the board report or the packet?
The numbers are in the list that's in like the regular meeting packet. So it's not in this workshop packet, but in the meeting.
Or if just somebody texts or emails us just the numbers before the board packet comes out, so we have a full couple of weeks to look at that, that would be great.
In this case, it'd be the first grouping of policies in the 600 series.
600?
So if you did
I
something
think
like,
it's 6 to 608 or something.
yeah, 600 to 608 or 610, that would cover it.
Yeah, I can find it here. Is that hand?
I know, I remember.
Like, what's going on? Okay.
Lisa, 601 to 608.
That's what Lisa said. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Jen.
She's so much faster at looking all that stuff up than I am, clicking through 15 different windows. Okay, let me get back to what I was doing. So, other things, do we have anything else for finance? Do you have anything for teaching and learning? Operations?
Quick update on operations. We'll have Kevin Johnson and Alan Gaylor come to upcoming board meeting, but Ms. Road asked a question about the solar garden. And there is a plan to add a segment to the land in the back of the high school here. It was delayed a year though, I think primarily because of COVID and supply chain equipment purchases. So I know it's in works, but we'll have the full update probably in 2 weeks, two to 4 weeks.
Awesome, thank you.
Personnel negotiation. we have things to do with that at the meeting, but I don't think there's really anything to discuss now. So any other general topics? Yes.
We do legislative and policy there. Just something I know Nikki had sent out an email a few weeks ago on Representative Barbara Haley.
I did meet with her.
Okay, great.
So, she said that, she can schedule to attend one of our future board meetings and have conversations with us that way to be legal. Otherwise, it would have to be just two of us that would meet with her. So I thought, since this is relationship building, that it would be nice to invite her to our board meeting. So, I'm in contact with her, secretary, so I can, would it be Lisa or Anna, or who would I pass that off to schedule something for our next, our future meeting?
I think it'd be fine for Lisa to put whenever it's gonna work for her.
Board meeting or workshop?
I would say a workshop would be better, if that timing works for her. After April 4th, they are fairly flexible, the workshops. So yeah, at this point, any workshop after that, I think at this point is pretty flexible to be able to, shift other speakers around or whatever, depending on what works for her.
Did she say when the last day the bills can be introduced at all? It's usually right around early April.
She didn't really say much about that. So I just,
I think that my point being, bringing it up is when Marcia and Brittany were here, was kind of piggyback a little bit with Arlen, saying $9 million budget surplus, which everybody wants, I get that. But if we don't make, the school board association will make their list of things that they want. We have a representative and a senator that represents us. If we don't make our wishes known to them, they're going by what other people tell them somewhere else. I was going to suggest, but having them come here is even better, but I would suggest that Senator Goggin and Representative Haley both asked to come on the same date where their schedules allow, or we make a trip to see them as a board, going up there, meeting with them, giving them a list of needs, not a big grocery list that to go through, 3, 4, 5 things or something like that, and see where they stand. We're talking, 2 different parties got 2 different views. But it certainly doesn't hurt for them to hear from their constituents, especially when it's an election year. And then at the same time, this fall, suggest we bring in any candidates that are running for these positions to see how their view is on education. And then, so they get to know us when we call them, because I could call Barbara, Mike, and they pick up they return a call. So either one, whatever the board wants to do, if you want to come here, fine. If not, let's pick a date where we can go up there, announce it, let everybody know we're gonna go as a forum, and go up there and visit, make an appointment. That's what we used to do on county. So.
On pre-pandemic, there used to be a day
there's
outside where
yeah.
we could go.
We used to do both.
And so I just, either one, it's fine with me, but let's get in front of them. Let's get them in front of us somehow with a list of, like I said, we don't need to bring 8 or 10 things because they're just gonna lose them. 2, 3, 4 things. Then,
Well, we should maybe come to a consensus on what those 2, 3
Exactly.
things are.
but let's get the meeting and we can do because their schedules are full. But sooner than later, because of bills being introduced and we'll know what their party's gonna push for, we can.
Well, let's see if we can get an alignment with, one of our workshop days and their schedules, and if not, we'll go to plan B.
That's fine. It'd be easier if they came here, but sometimes they can't
Right.
because of session
Yes.
committees. So, I mean, this is busy time for them.
Did you want to reach out to
I can,
Hagen,
I
or
can-
did you want me to reach out?
I can reach out to them.
Okay,
But he and Barb talk all the time. They talk regularly.
Okay.
So you have some dates that you're thinking about we could suggest?
Any of our workshops after April 4th.
I think we should try to work it before then, or maybe before that, April 4th is almost getting too late.
is there anything we can push off?
Session.
I'm suggesting if it's a way to do it in 2 weeks from now,
If
That's-
we could
that's
do, yeah, we
agreed.
could do that too. We could do that the 21st, if that works for them. We'll
Let's
see if we can
see
get
what
figured out.
dates they
Mhm.
work.
Yep.
Nikki and I will talk and we'll try to collaborate with both the two.
workshop days or these days, or is
And
there
if
some
we
other time
can't-
that could work?
Then we'll collaborate to get up there before.
Let's find out some dates that are
Yeah.
important to them for introducing bills, but, they'll get an idea of where the lay of the land is. Because, like I said, everybody's right there with their hand out, I'll tell you that right now.
Okay, do we
Thank
have
you.
do we have anything else for the workshop? If not, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn by Ms. Tower, second by Ms. Tift. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. All right, so I will adjourn this meeting at 5:56. We will start our regular board meeting at 6:05. Extra couple of minutes to get our life in order.
Holly, can you give us an update on Minneapolis, St. Paul? or not?
What I can tell you is
You walk in the line tomorrow?
working hard.
50/50 chance?
Huh?
50/50?
I heard, they were down to the last couple things around 3 o'clock. One of them was
On Monday, March 7th, and I'm going to call this meeting of the Red Wing School Board to order. All of our board members and Superintendent Carson Anderson are present. We did our Pledge of Allegiance prior to or at the beginning of our workshop. Mr. Dirks is going to read our mission statement.
The mission of the Red Wing Public Schools is to educate and inspire all students as they realize their full potential and become respectful, responsible, and productive citizens.
All right, so we have our agenda. Does anybody have any changes or additions to that?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as presented. Second?
All right, so a motion to approve the agenda by Ms. Rose, second by Ms. Tiff. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And that carries. All right, we are on to our educational plan. So I will just draw your attention to that, which of course drives the work that we do. And then we are on to recognitions and upcoming events. Does anyone have any recognitions or upcoming events they would like to share? Yes, Mr. Ryan.
Thank you. A couple weeks ago, we missed even mentioning it. It wasn't mentioned at our meeting or in the newsletter, but it was School Board Appreciation Week. And I want to extend my appreciation to all school board members here for stepping up and serving the community. It's never been a position where we've had such an unusual last 2-3 years. And decisions this board has had to make have not always been agreeable by a number of people. And it's going to continue. But it wasn't mentioned then, I want to mention it now, post. But thank you for being a school board member from another school board. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you.
Any other recognitions or events? If not, we are up to public comment, and I didn't see anyone signed in for public comment when I checked before the meeting. Do we have any emails?
I do not believe so.
I did not see any. Just for future record, if you would like to come speak at a board meeting, this is your opportunity. You have 3 minutes to speak on issues that come before the board. All right, then we are up to school board reports.
I'll just say for negotiations, we began with the support personnel this week, so we had our initial connection with them. We continue with the principals. I believe that we'll be making some headway with the cooks. You'll hear 2 tentative agreements later on this evening. Anything else in it? It's been a busy school year. Lots of great work happening.
Any of our liaisons? The equity team did not meet today, but will meet in April.
Calendar committee, we talked a little bit at the last meeting, had met. The health and safety committee, or health and wellness, which one is it? We're meeting on Thursday.
Probably health and safety, yes.
It was sent out by Sandra.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's meeting Thursday, 4:15.
All right. If there are no other reports, we'll move on to administrative reports.
Just a real quick update. First, there's information about the Safe Routes to Schools infrastructure grant that the city of Red Wing received in conjunction with the school. The I did not have a chance today to get the staffing update, but it's approximately the same as it was 2 weeks ago in terms of open teaching positions and paraprofessional positions. Substitutes, you can see paraprofessionals have an average of 4 unfilled absences per day from February 14th through the 27th. Teachers with an average of 5 unfilled absences per day. And of course, all of those unfilled absences impact everybody else in the building. Teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals, everyone. So our goal is to reduce that as much as possible. We've taken several steps during the year, including providing some additional money to substitutes if they would work every day during a certain period of time, and a lot of other things too. So we're making some headway, but it's still a burden on the school district when we don't fill all of our sub needs. The RFP for educational planning, we interviewed 3 really good firms for planning services. We have not gathered to discuss those proposals since the 3 interviews. And so we'll be doing that in the near future. We'll also be talking about timing for this work. Is now a good time or not? So I think that was brought up at the last school board meeting. We're going to talk about it internally and then come forward with a recommendation. And finally, there is information about the latest status of COVID-related federal grants. See the list there and which ones have been approved and which ones have been submitted. That's all I have.
That's the shortest report you've ever given.
I know. You're welcome.
I was,
Yes.
it's very nice to see that Ms. Jay Owens got that grant. That was very nice.
Yes.
Yeah, they do a lot of work behind the scenes that really helps the school district and its students. We're grateful for that partnership.
Okay, looks like we are on to our consent agenda. Does anyone have anything that they would like to pull from the consent agenda? Sorry, consent agenda. Can't do words today. If not, I am looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Mr. Bryant, second by Ms. Tower. All those in favor, is there any, no, can't be discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, that passes 7-0. I'm learning slowly, but. All right, donations and grants, and we have quite a few, which is wonderful to see.
If I could highlight them real quickly. Kiwanis Club of Red Wing donated to the Emergency Medical Needs Fund. Jeff and Kelly Holm donated money for the 2nd grade field trips. The Mayo Clinic donated $3,500. We allocated that towards the wellness committee for staff members. Sergeant's Nursery donated $50 to the Tower View robotics team. Jim and Connie Bryant donated to the Emergency Medical Needs Fund. There are 2 donations for the Red Wing Public Schools Music Endowment Fund. The St. Paul Foundation donated just over $1,100 to music programs in the school district. The Love to Read Legacy Fund, also the St. Paul Foundation, donated over $4,000 for books to the Red Wing Elementary Schools. And then FF&M of Cannon Falls donated $100 to the Tower View robotics team. So once again, as always, we appreciate these donations and we use them to benefit how we serve our kids.
I will make a motion to approve the resolution accepting donations and grants. I will second that.
So because this is a resolution, we will do a roll call. So the motion is to accept the resolution made by Ms. Cook, second by Ms. Rowe. I'll begin our roll call with Mr. Dierks.
Yes.
Ms. Rowe?
Aye.
Ms. Tower?
Aye.
Ms. Tift?
Aye.
Mr. Bryant?
Aye.
Ms. Buck?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. It is 7-0. And thank you again to all of those contributors.
Is that, just real quick, F&M, FF&M, is that the First Farmers Emergence Make?
I'm assuming so, but I don't know.
We should probably get that clarified in there.
I agree.
All right, we are on to business items, and for good or for bad, COVID-related topics are now moved to business items because it is just part of standard operating now.
You see the latest learning plan that was distributed to parents after the last board meeting. I think we reflected what we had discussed during the meeting. It was really helpful to have that done that night so we can get it out. I've not heard of any concerns or complaints about removing the mask mandate except from one or two staff members, perhaps some parents because of the timing of making the changes. But overall, I think it's been very, very well received. So once again, thank you for reviewing the data, deliberating, and making those challenging decisions.
Yes.
I don't, the COVID team meets, I assume, regularly, or have they not had to anymore? I guess I'm looking for an update. If we don't have one tonight, that's fine, but by our next meeting to see if we have had any adverse surge in numbers or anything that could be tied to the change that we've done, just to stay on top of things. I just would like to know. I think everything's going good, but maybe there's something I don't know, and I just would like to stay in the loop on it, so.
We do include data, as part of
From the county, yeah.
update. So that would be one thing. There are some school-related information points there as well. But certainly we can get a written update or an oral update at the next board meeting. That's no problem.
And possibly they'd have more suggestions in regard to quarantining or who's gonna monitor it or anything, if they have anything. But it's just like to have a little more update on what we've done here, and I feel very good about the timing of when we did this. I know I was wondering if we should wait another week or two, but I'm totally on board with what we decided. I think it was the right time. So thank you, anything we can get from future meetings.
Might also be a nice opportunity to thank them for everything they've done over the last 2 years. Perfect.
And we may need them again.
Hopefully not.
Wave 3 hopefully doesn't come, but you never know.
All right. So next up is our custodial agreement.
So I included a clean copy of the agreement in the board packet and then a red line version as an extra so that you can more easily see the changes that occurred in the agreement. We are very pleased to come to this 1-year settlement with the custodial group. It's for the current school year. Our goal is to try to get the next one done before July 1st so that when the new fiscal year starts, they have their increased pay rates immediately. So we'll be meeting in the next few weeks to kind of get that started. The current year agreement though shows a 2% cost of living increase for custodians at the highest step. We made significant changes with the lower steps in order to be more competitive with other local businesses. And it was a really good thing to do because the wages were very low at those beginning steps. We also changed our health insurance to require initial employee payments before the district contributions are accessed. That enabled us to convert some of the health insurance contributions that we were paying in the past and put it onto the wage schedule. So I think that's also a positive move. We increased the probationary period from 6 to 12 months. That's really a high priority as we deal with as we negotiate with our different employee groups. We like to have a full year to evaluate our employees. And then we also changed our transfer language to giving the district transfer rights for group A custodians. Jackie did, or Ms. Paradis did calculate the overall 2-year cost for the agreement at $169,000, which is $23,000 over the budget for the 2-year period. But the negotiations committee and I certainly believe that the additional amount is justified due to the custodians paying for the first part of their health insurance, the increase in the probationary period, and then the transfer language, as well as the increase in pay for beginning steps. So we're pleased to present it for approval this evening.
Clarification, Jackie's numbers for a 2-year agreement, or is it for a 1 year, for the 1 year?
2-year agreement.
Because this is a 2-year or 1 year contract.
Oh, that's a really good.
Is that right?
Thank you for catching that. Jack, or Ms. Paradis is here to explain. I
Because
appreciate that.
they did a 1 year earlier, was it earlier this year, we had that or whatever, so we've done 2 technically, but.
I think it's, well, we'll let Ms. Paradis.
It is the cost of the 2 years, so it is the cost of last year's 1 year and this year's 1 year. Since in my projection, when we do negotiations targets, we do it for the 2 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Bryant?
So do we need to start negotiations very soon again with custodians? Oh, okay, I get it. And I remember that we settled on one and then did the other. And I'm agreeable with getting that competitive wage up there to a level where we don't keep people coming in the door and out the door and all that. So the health insurance, explain, we had talked originally a while back on that, but health insurance is that big so-called grill in the corner that nobody gets their hands around. And you talked about getting your hands around it somehow. Were you successful in starting that process?
Yeah, each employee group has different health insurance arrangements. So custodians, food service workers, and most of our groups have caps. So school district contributions are capped at a certain level. Custodians in the past were capped at a higher level compared to most people to increase the steps for custodians and also to ensure that custodians were at least paying a portion of their health insurance. We did change it fairly significantly. I'm looking for the page here so I can give you actual numbers. So if you turn to page 5 of the agreement or page 53 of your board packet, you'll see, for example, for single coverage, the employee will pay the first $150 now, and then the maximum contribution that the school district will make will be $410. So it's lower than it was previously in terms of the school district contributions. Similarly, we have family coverage. The employee will pay the first $150, and then the school district contribution is capped at $1,450. Again, that's lower than it was in the past. So the key for me, though, is that the employee pays the first $150. That's important because we don't want employees who are taking their insurance just to take the insurance. And that's why we want that initial employee payment. At the same time, we don't want people to walk away from the insurance and then suddenly have a catastrophe. So we think we found the sweet spot on that.
I had seen that, I just hadn't seen how it compared to the last year. Oh, red line version, which I didn't see.
Yeah, for many years, custodians had either the highest level of school district contributions or very close to it. And so in order to reduce the burden or the risk for the school district, this is one thing we did with the custodians, but every group has been different. And as you said, it's a critical priority for the financial health of the school district.
Well, I will make the motion to approve the custodial agreement for 21-22 as presented. I will second that.
So we have a motion to approve this agreement by Ms. Took, second by Ms. Rowe. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. and that carries 7-0. We are on to our teacher agreements.
Once again, we're pleased to present the proposed agreement this evening. It was a lengthy process, a lot of give and take from both sides. And, but I think the eventual agreement is appropriate for not only the teachers, but also the school district. Once again, the cost of living adjustment is 2% each year on the basic pay rate. We did increase pay for curriculum writing, summer school, extracurricular activities, and career increments. And one thing I really want to highlight is, in particular, we are temporarily increasing summer school pay for work between June 1st and August 31st of this year. That is a direct response to the need to provide as much summer programming for recovery services as possible. So we're encouraging teachers, hopefully they're all Red Wing teachers, and we could hire teachers outside the district, but we want our Red Wing teachers to be working in that capacity. Probably, well, I know for sure the highest priority for the school district was to change how our health insurance contributions are made to teachers, just like we're doing with custodians. We did not achieve what we had originally wanted. However, we did make some positive changes in terms of health insurance. So teachers, superintendent, principals, district directors have in the past, percentage of either single policy or family policy paid by the district. So those health insurance costs went up. The school district bore most of the financial burden. We changed that to a soft cap. And so for teachers, it's set at 6%. So if health insurance premiums go up to 6%, the school district will pay that. However, if it's above 6%, then majority of those costs are borne by the teacher. So it's a soft cap. We didn't have a certain number that we established. We have a certain number, and then it goes up by a percentage of premium increases. So it's a little different concept, but I think it was a reasonable compromise. And so we'll, and that's explained fully in the contract, of course. We also made some other significant changes in terms of rewording the lane placement and advancement language. That's partly because of a grievance, and so we really strengthened the wording there. And when I say strengthened, I mean it's good for both sides because we better clarify how that's working. And that should minimize grievances in the future. We did change our disability, illness, and personal leave provisions. Beginning next year, teachers will earn 8 disability, illness leave days and 5 personal leave days per year. However, teachers can convert 2 of those towards the beginning of the year from personal leave to sick leave if they want to kind of bank that for future pregnancies or other anticipated health issues, or for whatever reason they need them for. We will be automatically reimbursing teachers for all unused personal leave at the end of the fiscal year. At the end of this year, that's $200 per day. At the end of next year, it's $150 per day. The reason we did that is to encourage or to discourage teachers from using personal leave for the rest of this year. And that's directly because of our significant need for subs. So teachers can still do it, no problem. We'll honor it, as long as it fulfills the contract. But we did increase the pay temporarily up to $200 per day. We also reworded the FTE calculations or full-time equivalency calculations for elementary specialists. Both sides have noticed there were some issues with how it was worded, so we corrected that. And then we also significantly reworded our grievance language, and that's largely based on what the Minnesota School Boards Association proposed. As Ms. Barrett has calculated, the budget over a 2-year period was $1,066,000. The costing of the 2-year agreement is $1.3 million. Again, the key for the group, the negotiations group, was that soft cap. And so I know we've discussed before that we have these financial parameters, but if we were able to get some leeway on some of our important priorities, then we can go above that. And certainly the soft cap is a significant issue there. Certainly the teacher retirements at the end of the school year will reduce the financial burden, but the key there was the soft health insurance caps. Once again, we have a clean copy in the packet and a red line version as an extra.
Comment, Ms. Tower?
Yeah, what was the vote? Percentage of yes votes versus no votes from the teachers?
You know, that's a union issue, and so I
It's
haven't
not
received
board,
any-
we can't know that at the board?
We've never shared it before, so, and I haven't received, anything in writing either, that would detail the vote. So,
Okay, so the email that we got was from somebody stating that there was only 4 votes difference. But that's not something that we have privy to.
Teacher emailed us.
Oh, gotcha. I don't know if I was included in that email, or maybe I was.
I don't know if you were.
Okay.
The union has not shared it.
Okay, the union hasn't shared anything with the negotiators.
Correct.
And they don't typically do that?
I've never received,
Like
well, I shouldn't say that. I don't think I've ever received an actual hotel official. Yeah, it's truly a union issue, and so they need to work out, they need to work out their process, their numbers, the ratification process. If we get a signed copy of the contract, then we take it to the board. So I've heard comments from here and there. I really try to stay out. It's not my business, to know that.
Yeah. No, that helps to clarify.
This is my 3rd round with the teachers, and I've never heard back from.
The balance of,
No, I never. I was in a union, we never shared with the employer what the vote was.
Any other questions, comments?
I'll just say,
Yes, Mr. Ryan?
The insurance is a big part of finances for us. And soft cap, I was kind of curious what the soft cap is. I wish that number was lower, but it's a start. Unfortunately, I'll go along with this. Fortunately, that's $240,000 more than what we thought we were gonna spend, so that's gotta come out of somewhere else for the reductions that Jackie talked about in our workshop. So I get it, cost of inflation's going up, cost of everything's going up, and let's get this passed and work on the next one, but understand that, dollar's a dollar, it's not, I've shared that with you. So we'll do what we need to do.
One of the main factors in how hard we worked on that cap was, if we have a really rough year, and, we're both on the labor negotiations team, so, it could be, if we had a really rough year and costs go way up, we could recoup that in 1 year.
You're not gonna recoup it, you're just gonna cut.
Well,
that 6%.
it would pay for itself. And I hope that never is the case.
The hope is it's down under 6%.
Correct, always.
And everyone's happy.
Yeah, and I will say that, like I said, this was my 3rd round with the teachers, and as I talked to people all over the state, school boards, they're always amazed that we're able to manage our own negotiations. A lot of districts have negotiators on behalf of the district. And what I will say is, I think that we bring both sides a fairness to the process. These are people who have children in our district who care. Nobody's out on either side to try and sneak something by anybody else. And so I've been very honored actually to be a part of the process and hear firsthand, I think, the joys and the concerns. And I think our team truly does want to make it a great place for our, not just teachers, but, you know, all of our teams. We want this to be a great place to work, and we want to do everything we can financially to make that work. But there are also other ways that we can make things work, like the 5 days and the 8 days. That was a direct ask, and we were able to work with them on giving them some more flexibility in their sick versus personal days. So, you know, I just wanted to put that out there, that I think it's a good process. It's a fair process. I appreciate the negotiations team for Education Minnesota that's come forward. I know that we can't please everybody all the time, and that's the hard part of making decisions in this role. And everybody has a voice. You've got union representation, you've got school district representation, and so I would just really encourage people that, you know, if they are disappointed, if they are frustrated, if this wasn't, you know, the magic pixie dust, I hope that your voices are carried over in the next negotiation sessions, which hopefully will begin sooner rather than later. We don't like trying to negotiate contracts that are already due. You know, we'd like to be ahead of the game, and hopefully we got a little behind the 8 ball with COVID, but hopefully now we'll be able to. We're barreling through a lot of these and doing really great, thoughtful work. So I thank our team, and I thank Education Minnesota for getting us to this point today.
Yes.
Yeah, I will say that I really appreciate that board members are part of the negotiation with our groups, because you do hear firsthand from people what are the struggles and what are the areas that, you know, are non-negotiable or things that just have to go through. And so I think when we take the board away from that process and we do use a mediator because it's a little bit more cut and dry and not as emotional, I think we lose a lot. And so I don't think you get paid enough to be part of to do the negotiating, because it's a lot. It's a lot of work, and I appreciate, you know, Education Minnesota coming to the table and representing. I really do, but I think it's critical that board members are part of that process, especially in a district this size. It could easily go the other way, and we could all kind of, well, the negotiator said, but, you know, I look at you guys after having gone through it, and you're like, you know, we're not going to give everybody what they want, but hopefully we came to the table with something that people can feel okay with.
I think there were a lot of really good collaborative things that happened too in the process. So
yeah,
overall, I think it was good.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I understand that, and so I'm just, you know, proud that Red Wing can do that.
Anyone else?
Well, with that, I will move to approve the master agreement with Education Minnesota for the 21-23 contract years.
Second. All right, we have a motion on the table by Ms. Rowe, second by Ms. Tift. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. And that carries 7-0. All right. So we are up to some updates on our student discipline. So I know that we have Ms. Norton here in person and Ms. Felt on our call to talk about some discipline, primarily with the high school, but you can come on up.
As Frank Norton comes up, I want to personally thank him for everything he's done this year. He stepped in during an incredibly challenging time with COVID and with student discipline issues across the country. And he has the right personality and the right skill set to do the best things possible at high school. So thank you in advance.
Thank you, Troy.
Jump in and share your thoughts on
Okay.
this one.
Yeah, I can give you an update as to where we are. First of all, I'd like to back up a little bit to what you were talking about earlier with the mask. And I know at the last meeting you talked about it, and then you had the motion to take the mask off. And I wanted to reiterate a little bit, just the impact that that's had on our kids in the building. And I knew it was going to be positive, but I didn't actually know how positive it was going to be until you actually see the kids in the hallways and you see their smiles. And so thank you for that. It has made an enormous difference. And just a couple of examples, basically, not individual examples, but you knew basically, because you talked about it last time, that we spent a lot of time talking about the mask down. Put up your mask, put up your mask. I might have probably said it 50 to 100 times a day. And all of those negative comments basically added up. And if we have 50 staff members saying that same thing, that's a lot of negative that's happening. We got rid of that. So now we don't have that interaction anymore, and we can concentrate on the positive. Now it's a lot of positives that are happening inside there. It looks like you're having a great day. Looks like you're, those kinds of things. Those are the comments you can make now because you can see them and you can make comments about their interactions with the other kids. So I wanted to just share that. The smiles that we're seeing, the interactions with the kids, the laughter that you're hearing in the hallways is way more prevalent than we were before when you couldn't see that. So thank you for that. Behavior itself, I can talk about specific things that are happening within there. I know there was concerns at one time with our bathrooms being closed, and you probably got a number of phone calls about that. And really, what we did was with that was we enlisted the help of the kids themselves into the bathroom situation. So I first started off just with an announcement over the loudspeaker, talking to the kids about why the bathrooms were closed. We closed the bathrooms so that we can repair the bathrooms. We're not closing them because we don't want them open. We want the bathrooms open. But in order for them to be open, they have to be safe and they have to be clean and they have to be free of graffiti. So when that would happen, we would close them down. So I simply told the kids, this is what's happening. This is why they're closed down. If we can stop the vandalism from happening in the bathrooms, they will always be open. Gave them specific examples of having to order materials once they're vandalized inside there. So that was one step that we took. Then we made a video so that they could see us talking. You maybe heard about the video. So we went on and we made a video. Did you guys get copies of the video? You haven't seen it?
I've seen it.
All right. So we went on and we just talked to the kids in real terms. And the key, I think, was that we put the kids into the video themselves. It wasn't just us as administrators saying, you got to stop vandalizing. The kids got on and said, we want you to, because we want to use the bathrooms. It's common sense. If you leave the bathrooms for their intended purposes, then we can go in there and we don't have to shut those things down. You don't have to go searching for a bathroom. But following that video, just walking in the halls, a lot of the kids were like, hey, the bathrooms are all open. The bathrooms are all open. So now they're all open and we can keep them open. We've had a good, probably 2.5 weeks, including today, where the vandalism has been minimal. And by minimal, I mean maybe a clogged sink here and there or something like that, where a kid has intentionally done something like that. But it has gone down and our bathrooms for the most part have been open all day long. So that's a plus, just talking to the kids. And it was really just enlisting them and giving them reasons as to why this is happening. Communication, basically. Lots of times we go through our world and we say this needs to happen. Why? And communicating out those reasons why is a large portion of it. Kids want to know. So we told them why they were being closed down, and then they've helped us to be able to keep them open. So that was one part of it. The other thing, as far as behavior is concerned, we're making a concerted effort now that the masks are off to working on school climate. We already have a culture in which we know where we want to go, and you guys at the beginning of the meeting, you talk about your vision and your mission for the school, which is fantastic. Now the climate of the building has to shift. COVID, hopefully, and some of you said hopefully that's never to come back again just a little bit ago. COVID may be something that we can kind of say, okay, let's deal now with without having COVID right staring in front of us. We've got our masks off and we can begin to learn. Let's work on school climate as well. So we went to the National Honor Society. I don't know whether Mr. Trost talked about this last week. Went to the National Honor Society and all 50 of them sitting there and we said, we need you as leaders in this building and in this community to help us change the climate within the school. And they agreed. They said, we will do that. So now when you walk down the hallway, I said, I need you to tell teachers how valuable they are. I need you to tell each other how valuable you are to the school. So when I walk down the hallways now, that's happening. Kids will see me and they'll say, Mr. Norton. They don't probably even know me other than I'm the principal now for Mr. Nemenich for this little portion of time that's going on. But they will say, Mr. Narden, we like what you're doing with the school. And it's simple as that. And I've heard that several times just walking around the hallways these days. And I know they're communicating that to the teachers. So the kids have invested themselves back into the building a little bit. Just had a staff meeting and I asked the teachers then to do this exact same thing. Concentrating on the positive things that are happening in the school, concentrating on the 1,000 kids we have in the school that really want to have a successful experience, especially our seniors who are on their way. You know, they got a couple months left. Let's make this a positive ending to our school year. And they asked the teachers to be able to make sure that that happens for our kids. And they are doing that now. So now we got the kids invested, why we want that to happen. We got the teachers invested, the administration's out there. So that climate is what we're working on. It's just really presence within the hallways at the same time as within your classroom. Now that they can see the kids, they can comment to the kids and they can have that positive experience and that positive interaction. One of the other things is it's all tiered. So you can't just say we can be positive and everything will go away. We also have to have consequences in place for when people do make bad choices, when they make choices that aren't positive. So now our concentration is on that as well. So at the same time that that's happening, whenever something happens as far as a student that's off or a student that's made a choice that doesn't go along with our mission and our vision within the school, we address that right away, consistently. And we're making sure that if a teacher reports something, we follow through on that. We were, and we always have been, within that. And once the teachers and everybody realizes that consistency can change the climate and change culture within a school, they'll see it start to go. So let me back up just a little bit. Back in January, it was in December, Carson, that I talked here, and I came the last time I was here, and I said discipline within the school and the school culture and everything was good. Remember me saying that? And it was. January, if you look at the numbers, you guys get the chart that I showed you, and you're looking at the chart. In January, when we came and I came here and I talked to you guys, it was like, everything's great at the high school. This gig that I've got here as your principal is outstanding. I love that. I still really do. But then we switched semesters and the mix of the kids went in different directions. And now those relationships that those teachers had with the 30 kids that they had sitting in front of them, it's shifted and they all went in different directions. And now we've got a new mixture of kids sitting in front of us. And they have to rebuild those relationships. They have to rebuild the structure within those classrooms. So that is happening now. At the same time, there's a lot of things that happen in January. January is a tough month because March is a long way before spring break. So it's just getting back into that systematic, how do we act? How do we, within our classrooms, that kind of stuff, in the mix within the classrooms. At the same time that was happening, we were going after consequences when that happens. And when you do that, you're going to get a reaction, equal and opposite reactions, right? So if you're after kids for their behavior, there's going to be some pushback. At the same time, the teachers were asking for that. So actually the data inside here that jumped in February, that data is reflective of us making sure consequences are in place and making sure that we're following through on teacher referrals. So that has gone up as well, that you can see that number is rising in there. So combining those two pieces together, that number did jump up. Now, if you look down a little bit and you look at chart number 3 down inside there, Emily did a little bit of a comparison between 2019 and 2020. So in February, there's 153 referrals, right, for discipline for majors down on the bottom. And back this year, there's 142. So 2 years ago, there was discipline issues that we had within the building. And this year, there are discipline issues that are happening within the building. And I'm not saying that that's okay. We would rather be down in the 62s. As a matter of fact, I'll go for 0. But realistically, kids are kids. So we're hoping to be able to drop that number down once March comes. I was telling somebody today, I talked to 3 kids about their behavior. I've never had a day like that. So today was a great day and I want that to continue on. But that number of 142, if you look back at 2019, so that actually made me feel a little bit better. Not that there's 163 is a good number or 142 is a good number, but at least comparison-wise, it didn't feel as extraordinary as it felt within the building as 142. So those are kind of the high points or the low points, or the high points of what we're doing within the building. We're going after climate. We're making sure that the end of this year is as positive as it possibly can. At the same time, We're going after consequences, and we're holding kids accountable for the behavior that's happening. The vandalism is already down, and now we go after other things that might want to be cleaned up within the school. Some of the kids that are still dysregulated and might be out in the hallways, how do we get those kids back into their classrooms? Or how do we change their schedule so they feel comfortable within the classroom? Building on the relationships with those kids that aren't enjoying school right now. People don't learn if they don't have relationships with their teachers. So that's the primary thing that we're working on as well. Out in the hallways, our administrative staff, our safety people, Pat Kelly within there, and one of the primary things he does within the building is build relationships with kids. And that makes them feel comfortable, that makes them feel as though they can come to him, and that makes our building that much more safe. Same with the administrators, same with all the teachers. If the kids are comfortable coming to them, they have relationships with them, they can problem solve, we can get the kids back into learning. Do you have any questions at all? And, yes.
I had the pleasure, I attended one of Mrs. Toivonen class for a day, or for an hour, excuse me, for Spanish. I don't know the language, I don't know a lot about, but watched that interaction that she had with, the book on, she was reading the book, and then they moved. And they went to this book, okay, you're reading it, and they were following along, somebody's doing the voice, the verbal. Then she moved them into groups of talk, and you could just sense then the vibrant, the energy of the class. Just I hang on the bell, but they were doing work. They were talking. They were communicating. They were moving. It's the same day they brought their carry your back stuff. It's something other than your backpack. Clothes baskets, cooler, all that. But also what happened, you talk about that video. I listened to that video, watched it during that hour. And great idea. Not only that, instead of how comes a teacher, comes an administrator, get out of the bathroom. Now you got students watching and talking and pushing and, communicating with them. Oh, geez, another set of eyes, I don't want to wreck my friend's bathroom privileges and all that. So I thought that was a wonderful way to get that message out, the way you had administrators, the students, back and forth, that dialogue, and why bathrooms are closed. And one was like for weeks because of parts. Yeah. Most of them were wondering, why is it so closed so long? So they explained it very well. So that was a good day. And it was like 2 days after the masks, I think, came out. And there's a fair share of students that chose to wear masks. Great. And, but you could see the smiles and the laughter and the fun in this building. So it was really good.
Thank you.
But,
I appreciate what you told us here and how you're handling some of these situations and getting our students involved. And I'm still hearing a lot of reports of a lot of issues in our bathrooms and stuff, and I can't substantiate them 100%. I'm being told there's a vaping issue. Where are we at on vaping in our school? Do we have an issue?
Well, there are a certain number of students, yes, that are. And here's the issue, here's the problem with that. Here's our solution to it. Well, let me first phrase the problem, and then I'll go to the solution of how we're looking at it. The problem is that kids can go into a bathroom and they can go into a stall and they can use a vape within that. And it's electronic. You just go click, 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 and then it goes. We outside of having someone within that bathroom at all times, it takes 30 seconds for them to be able to do that within that bathroom. And we also, as adults, we can't stand in a bathroom and watch children go to the bathroom. I mean, that's just not something we can do. So it is an area that the students, they have access to be able to go into a bathroom, and they have that happening within the bathroom. Our solution to that basically is our monitors now. What we do is we have staff that are assigned to be able to walk the hallways. And what we've said to the staff now that are monitoring the hallways is, I want you on the bathrooms. So it's a 5-minute increment. So let's say upper J, which we're in right now. There's a lower bathroom J and there's an upper bathroom J. Your job is to monitor upper and lower J, and it takes you 2 minutes to be able to go basically this hallway and then upper J hallway. And so when you go by and you look into the bathroom and you look into this one, you can't look into the bathrooms, you can't look into the stalls, but you can peek in, you can look for feet, and you can come back out again. If there's vaping that has happened in there, Then they report that, so it's communication. So we would say, Upper J had a vape incident. Now we go to the cameras and we look how many people came out of there. And then we go to those students that may have come out of that bathroom. Now we can't say you were vaping in the bathroom because we weren't in there. But we can talk to those students. What did it look like? What did it, was there somebody in there? And now they know we're watching. So it is a difficult situation. And parents, I don't blame them for being, when you go into a bathroom, someone's been vaping in there, but outside of posting somebody outside of that bathroom, locking the bathroom doors and opening them up with a key and letting somebody in, use the bathroom, check it afterward, lock it back up, and having 6 monitors all day long in bathrooms, there's not a lot of way to be able to stop it. So our solution basically is to watch it as closely as we can. We've asked students, if you go in and you see somebody vaping in the bathroom, and not necessarily report on them, but to make sure we're aware of it so that we can watch to see if somebody's been vaping in there. We don't want kids necessarily, doing our job, but it is, to some degree, they've got to stop them. If somebody comes in and they're utilizing the facility and somebody takes out a vape, they can say, stop that, get out. So again, the student accountability basically to make sure that that's happening. And I have heard the same, as far as, parents are concerned about that.
About 4 years ago, and thinking maybe it was 5, we were having what I consider serious issues at the high school. And at that time, there was a lot of steps that were taken to address some of the behavioral things. One was no more backpacks going from room to room. We changed that when COVID came because we didn't want them to use their lockers. But in that backpack, you can tend to stash different things. So that was one of the things that was there. There was that bathroom vandalism going on. There was issues with cell phones and different things. And the cell phones were supposedly totally banned, but it certainly cut back. And now it's from when I get the feeling that we're heading back towards that, and I hope we stay on it. And personally, I don't want to see us spend more money, but if it has to go farther stream to take care of things, if there is a problem, and like I say, I have it substantiated, you can hear from 5 people and you think it's a major problem, but when you got 1,000 people in the building, it may or may not be. So I might be hearing it totally different. So I recognize that, and I appreciate how you're addressing it. But I do want to make sure we make every effort we can to get that building where students feel safe. And a couple of these students I talk to don't feel safe. And that bothers me, that hurts me to hear a student doesn't feel safe.
Right.
And so I hope we continue to address that and look at it. Later on, I believe the next agenda item, we're going to talk about school configuration. I don't know where our age group issues are, if it's more in one area or another, or balanced throughout all 6 grades, but I strongly believe that we need to make every effort we can to get the 8th graders out of that building and make it a 9 through 12 high school. And that's one of the things that I'm going to be working with. People may or may not agree with me, but that's what my gut is telling me. And if you have any comments, any of that, I appreciate it. If not, I thank you for coming here tonight and telling us what you see and what you're doing. Thank you.
You want me to comment on the 8th grader? Or 7th grader?
Sure.
I don't have any data necessarily as to who it is that's vaping. As we find them or as we catch them, we are gathering that. And we are trying to eliminate it as much as we possibly can. And, I can't give you numbers, but I can say that there are a number that we are finding. And age-wise, one of the things with 7th and 8th graders is that with the size of this building and with the number of passing times that they have and with them being able to get basically lost in a crowd and feel like they're in a high school environment when they're developmentally not ready to be in there, it is much easier for them to find ways to be able to get into a bathroom, to get into a situation that they shouldn't be in. So if you're asking, I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I would say I agree with you if I was going to give you an opinion. But as far as the 7th and 8th grader in this size of a building, in this environment, it does tempt. It lends to them being able to find those places to be able to do that. Yes. Yeah.
Page 126 of our packet has the major referrals broken out by the the grade level too. I mean, it doesn't say, you know, what the major referral was, but you can see the breakout of which grade levels were
Yeah.
most of them. I think,
Yeah.
Ms. Howard.
So I had originally asked for kind of an update on what the safety coordinator was doing and if they're doing training with staff around behavior, around hallway supervision. Because it's one thing to say to an adult, go supervise the hallways, and then it's another thing to show the adult kind of what we're looking for or what the parameters are. Like you said, you don't go into the bathroom and look under the stalls. You just kind of, you know, peruse the stall to see if there's any.
Look for the number of feet that are
Yeah,
on the
like
floor.
there was, you know,
One stall.
Nikes and there was 3 Crocs, like,
Yeah.
right, purple, whatever. But is there training going on for the adults in the building around some of the safety and the concerns and how to interact with kids who are elevated or who are, you know, agitated more so than others?
Right. So one of there's a number of different things that are happening in that realm. Again, in January, we flipped. So all of the hallway monitors were brand new because their supervision and their duties flipped. All of the cafeteria staff that watched our 7th and 8th graders flipped. And they are 9 through 12 staff members who don't know those 7th and 8th graders. So they have to begin that whole relationship building. So the administrative staff, Carson asked a lot of people to come down there just to support us in those first 2 weeks until we could model. Here's what it's supposed to look like. Here's what it should sound like, feel like in this cafeteria. Here's how you interact with kids at this particular age level. I know Jess Whitcomb back here is working a little bit on wording. How do you talk to kids? So that's forthcoming. A lot of staff through Marcia are also going to be receiving the verbal and nonverbal communication through the Crisis Prevention Institute. If you've ever trained, I was a trainer in CPI and Crisis Prevention Institute. So I trained my past staff, my past district, all 300 teachers myself, basically in that nonverbal and verbal communication, as well as the nonviolent crisis intervention. So I'm aware of all that. So I model. As far as training is concerned and having them come to a PD development, that has not happened yet, but it is happening and coming.
Good.
Yep.
Okay.
I want to emphasize your modeling for adults is exceptionally good. You kind of do it naturally, but I know that you have some plans for more structured opportunities as well.
Maybe little videos.
Could do a little bit of this, yeah. I could do little videos I suppose put together. The modeling is just sort of when I'll give you an example. So when you approach a student that might be heightened, you don't approach them face on and come over them like a bear. You approach them in an open stance and you have a conversation so they have an escape route. So if you model that and you go up to a student and when you're standing beside them and they've always got this gap over inside there. So that's just little modeling things or talking to the teachers. Well, what happened when I went up and I was talking to them and what did you look like when you did that? Here's a cue for you. Don't approach them face on, approach them with an open stance. Those kinds of things are easy ones to be able to do. And that's just as you get into situations where students are heightened or they're dysregulated because of COVID or whatever it might be that we're working toward. And Marcia's CPI and even the verbal language that comes with that. And then as Jess puts out some of the responsive classroom verbiage that you can use with kids, that will help us a lot as well moving forward.
I guess really quick, my question around that is, we were told when the safety coordinator was hired, that was going to be part of the job responsibility, is that they were going to do training with staff around safety, around approaches, around de-escalation. And I'm hearing you say that hasn't occurred with the safety coordinator position, but other people are stepping in.
Well, not necessarily specifically with him. His portion of it right now is again modeling, because when we have a crisis situation that's going on or a safety issue that's going on, he goes with. So he's making sure that when we are intervening, he's there to be able to model and make sure that that's happening as well as a support. He has a lot of relationships with the kids, primarily structurally, a couple of structural things that he's done within the building, as our front door and all those kinds of things. He's also worked with our SRO within the building extensively. There's a number of things that I can send to you basically as far as what it is that the safety coordinator's been doing within the building.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful because I had a different vision of how that was gonna go around the school climate and you being new and different things happening. I'm hearing things that it is working, it's not working, but I'd like to know more details and if other people are stepping in, like you said, Marcia and Jess, are stepping in and providing other kinds of trainings. That's helpful for us to know, because as staff are walking through the building, you know what, you've got about 20% that are actually comfortable with engaging a group of students or somebody who's heightened who has the training.
Right.
And other staff are like, this is not part of my job description, like I am not gonna be telling these kids,
Yeah,
get out of the bathroom, you know, that's not a comfort zone for a
Yeah.
lot of people, and so that's why I'm asking those things.
right. I think our next step basically with the safety portion of this whole building is a larger portion also on safety within the building. So orchestrating students in actual crisis situations. Maybe, and I know that's not what you're talking about, but we need to update our Alice, you know, and move toward that. And that's kind of where we're going now with the safety coordinator. He and I are working together to some degree on that.
Update the systems.
Update the
lockouts,
systems,
lockdowns, and-
exactly. What do we do when this happens? What do we do if that happens? So he arranged for a meeting this morning, had a virtual visit with a gentleman, just to get an idea of how much it was gonna cost, the parameters, training, that kind of stuff. I'm also an Alice trainer myself, so it'd be easy to be able to kind of walk in and be able to do that with the group, to be able to get that going. So we've just begun that, and Pat Kelly, as the safety coordinator, is spearheading that whole thing, just to update our crisis plan and what does it look like when we do that, need to have a lockdown. So that's in the works,
That'll be district-wide.
district-wide.
I'm not sure who was next. Did you have a question?
I just have a couple of comments.
Or,
Go ahead.
Mhm.
So as you're talking, a couple of things come to mind, you know, with the vaping, addiction versus pushing limits. I'm sure there's a whole continuum of that. One of the things that I think about is, are we giving students the access to tools? Because, you know, are they doing that to see how much they're getting by, or are they doing it because they have to, because they're addicted? And I know these substances are highly addictive, and so, you know, are we, it's a rhetorical question, but, you know, just kind of putting it out there. Also, I do know that there are vaping monitors for bathrooms, and I know those are expensive, but I've seen them at the MSBA conferences, I've seen how they work, they're pretty snazzy. They go to a computer system, a red light flares. I mean, they're pretty,
Wow.
I think they're spendy, but, you know, maybe there's some sort of grants or something to ease the burden, because I don't know how people can do that. I mean, I don't know that we're going to. I mean, I think we can try and get wrangle it in a little bit, but, you know, just a couple of things to think about there. And then just the last comment I wanted to make is, you know, love it or hate it, social media is really doing school districts a service or a disservice. I'm just not sure exactly, but, you know, some videos that surface about what's happening in our lunchrooms. And, you know, I gotta say, as a parent and hearing from parents, you know, we have a customer base, essentially. We are providing, we're kind of a business, and we have a product that we're trying to sell, and part of that product is safety. No child should be coming, no student should be coming, no teacher should be coming into this building and wondering, well, what's gonna happen today? And so however we need to wrangle things up and change things, you know, I go back to our bullying and harassment policy, and our policies are only as effective as we're willing to enforce them. And I need to be pretty strong on this, because there's absolutely no place in this culture, in this climate, for kids to be getting milk poured on them at a lunchroom. And I know it's been dealt with, that's not the issue. The issue is that kind of stuff is horrible. It is not acceptable, and I want to make sure that our bullying and harassment policies are being looked at on a regular basis. It's laminated on everybody's door. But then if we're gonna have a policy, we need to enforce it. What's the next step? And, you know, whatever that takes, I think we owe it to our communities to make sure that when anybody walks in this building, they are safe. And I know we can't say 100%, things happen, I get it, kids are kids, they're impulsive, their frontal lobes are not fully developed, I understand, they're supposed to make mistakes. But we also have a huge duty and obligation to the victims in these scenarios. And I don't want to overlook the support that those kids need to have coming back to school the next day, knowing that the whole world just saw that I had milk poured on me.
And that's just one instance.
Yeah.
One that I know of.
That is
And you don't
transpired
own
from
it all,
a
right?
numerous.
Like, you can't own all of that.
No, I'm not saying you own
Yeah.
any of it. I'm just saying, as a district, as a board, if we're gonna have a strong policy, we need to have strong enforcement of them.
Right.
That's the only point I'm trying to make.
So I can speak to a couple of them. I don't know how much time you have. But anyway, the monitors within the vaping. So we looked into that and called other districts is sort of what we do, you know, just make sure that that's something that we would want to even look into. And didn't get a lot of good reports that they don't work as well as they're supposed to. If the kids know that they're there, they just wet some toilet paper and they put them over the top. So now you're just always dealing with the toilet paper that's stuck to the vaping. It's the same thing you used to do when you heat up the registers at your old school. You just stick some toilet paper in the cold and the building would heat up. Anyway. I'm not giving kids any ideas at all. So anyway, the vaping portion of it, that we are aware of, and we're looking at all the possibilities to be able to do that. And with the harassment and the bullying and things like that, that it actually in the last 3 weeks or whatever it has been about half the day, because we are looking at the policies, interviewing students, making sure students feel safe as they enter into the school. They want to be able to come back, listening to parent concerns, just that communication with the parents and making sure they understand that we're doing everything that we possibly can. And on the flip side of that, as you listen to those, please also listen to all, and I told the staff, and I tell all the kids this at the same time, there are 1,000 kids in here. And if there are 30 kids that are pouring milk or whatever it might be, and you guys are hearing about those, I'd ask that you also listen to the other 1,000 that are saying, I love it here. If you went to the karaoke situation, to the Pep Fest, where there were 1,000 kids down there cheering, 7th and 8th graders who were so invested in that opportunity to be able to say, I want to cheer for what's happening here. And the dance on Saturday night, I went to the dance on Saturday night, and they loved it. So there's a lot that's good, and there was no discipline issues at any of those events. So, and I know it's difficult to be able to hear that as a board member, you're responsible for all the kids. And I feel bad when something like that happens because I've been responsible for it as well. But I also want to make sure that we're recognizing at the same time all those kids were really achieving high level things. I was talking with Heather this morning on our debate team that took second place in a category. So recognizing those things at the same time. And I'm not dismissing those kids that feel terrible when that happens to them. But we want all of that negativity to go away so they invest themselves in the positive. And if we can get them to come in this direction, they don't have to do those things while they're in school. That's the two-pronged approach that we're trying to get after. Sorry.
I was a smoker here in this, well, not in this building, but I smoked at 15 years old. Why did I smoke? Well, my dad just died. We have a stressful environment. These are why these kids are doing it. They react because their environment is not good. Diagnosed ADHD. When I walk in this building, they see me as Auntie Nikki. I was getting called up here, as we all know, quite a few times to put out a lot of fires. Why do they call me? Because all these children relate to me. Even if they didn't have ADHD, my tools and resources are excellent in how to relate to these kids. So I used to work with Ship and Tobacco. It's education. That's what it's going to be. We need to teach these kids of the long-term effects of what it does. We don't do that enough. I didn't get that enough. When I got it at 26 years old when I was pregnant, going to have my first child, I got to see actually what cigarettes did. I just smoked a pack a day since 15 years old, and then I quit. And then I went into a field where I highly advocated it and
turned traditionally, because you know the American Indian is kind of in the face of tobacco, and that's not culturally and traditionally correct. That is a European product. So it's my job to kind of flip the narrative that plants are medicine and we use them respectfully. It's never to overindulge. So I can help collaborate with, because I work for the, tribe of the state of Minnesota. I can help them collaborate some education material. That class I taught, that even Michael Holmes had noticed that not one student was on their phone. They had all their eyes at me because there's traditional teachings that go with that traditional chinchasha, or traditional tobacco. So disciplinary issues, here we go. I would have to say I'm very proud of this fact. My discipline, my self-discipline came from this district. And I'm very proud of it. It has saved my life numerous times with my health. We just have to get back to that. I'm very excited about all these things, and I am a huge tool and resource, alternative lifestyle. We have the Dakota language and culture coming up here. That is going to honestly help with a lot of issues, especially with the bullying. As we said, no child, but there's a lot of reasons why they're going on, and we have to get to the root of the problem. We need to get them to understand that their peers, they're going to be, they are the ones that are going to help them through life. And they need to be able to understand and get along with people different than themselves. Okay. And so providing these environments, I would say, why did culture camp and those kids just ran me over one? There were 40 Native kids and I was the only freaking chaperone. And they just ran me over. I didn't get any sleep and I went crying to the uncles. That was Uncle Paul. I said, these kids, they were being nashkia, that's naughty. And so all the uncles went to camp that day. They all had the respect talk with the children. The very next day, it was like night and day. And we have had tremendously successful cultural camps after that. We have to rise up as a community. We really do. And be the example of everything that you have said. And like I said, your methods and things must be going on, because I haven't gotten any calls in a couple of weeks to come up here and put out fires. So I am very proud and very happy to have you a part of the team for an alternative way. You and I have had conversations before, and we think they're very similar. It's give them options to do, this coming down on them, this forcing them. No, they're good kids. You just gotta give them the environment, give them tools and resources, wear their clouds in case they fall to bring them back up. But ultimately, they're the deciders of their life.
Well said.
If, I know we've talked a couple of times already about this, but again, what can we do in terms of resources to help you and the high school team? And you don't have to answer now, but I hope you know that it's out there, it's an offer.
Oh, thank you. Yep, I appreciate it.
And I would say all admin, like Frank, and all, at Twin Bluff and at
Good point.
Burnside and Sunnyside, because I know little problems are big problems, even though they're little people.
Yeah.
Right, and it just manifests as they get older. So it's the same message for all administrators.
Just let me know and we'll bring it to the next board meeting.
Great.
Thanks, Frank.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Safe travels
Appreciate it.
back.
Thank you.
All right. So, everyone's favorite topic, we are on to grade configurations and transportation options.
I think there's good information in the board packet as far as different options. So the first two options are the same as last time, except for the transportation implications. I switched the starting time. So in this example, we have high school starting first and then elementary schools. Again, we can go back and forth and we can decide that at a later meeting. Tonight's meeting will focus more on grade configurations. So again, option one would be grade level centers with a 5-7 middle school. Option two would be attendance zone schools for Sunnyside and Burnside with a 5-7 middle school. Option 3A and 3B are, the reason I did this is that They're essentially grade level centers, but including a 6-8 twin bluff. So there are a couple of different variations. That's why one is 3A and one is 3B. I'm not sure if either one of those would work well. If we were going to do a 6-8 middle school, I think option 4 would be better. And that would include some sections of 5th grade in Twin Bluff, as well as some sections at Burnside. So those are the options that we have here tonight. The administrative team has talked about this for several weeks or months. And, our recommendations in terms of grade configurations are reflected in option 1, which would have a Sunnyside school building as an early childhood through 1st grade. School, Burnside is grades 2 through 4, Twin Bluff is 5 through 7, and then the high school 8 through 12. However, we all agreed about a month ago that we want this to be a temporary solution, that we believe that a 6-8 middle school is the right thing to do long-term. We just don't believe that we have enough rooms for this coming school year to do it. So that's kind of where we are administratively. And you can see other information about the transportation system. Sarah and Nikki reviewed the transportation arrangements, looked at what other transportation settlements have been throughout the state. And their conclusion is that because of the extra routes and the extra cost contract, that if we wanted a 1-tier system, it would cost about $650,000 per year. So the recommendation is to stay as a 2-tier system. The starting and ending times, I did not solicit enough feedback from the administrative team at this time, so I'd like to wait on that until I can hear from building and district leaders on that. It's really kind of a separate issue from grade configurations. So
You said 650,000, but in here it says more, 650,000. 1 tier is 650,000 more than 2 tier.
Oh, yes.
Is that,
Mhm.
okay. Ms. Tower, you're first up.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work, Karsten. Administrative team, I know that has been a nonstop topic of conversation. How to do this, what to do, when to do. So I just want to thank you for the tremendous amount of work that you've put into it. And I appreciate that you've come together with an option that you'd like to recommend. That is extremely helpful to hear from you all on what you think will be the best. Not what I want necessarily, what my fellow board members want, but what you think will be the best. And so I just really appreciate you coming together as a group and saying, this is what we think will work. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Any questions?
Oh, I have a whole, sorry.
I'll take my hand out.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. We haven't had one so far this meeting. Okay, Mr. Dierks, you're up next.
Oh, okay, thank you. This is a topic that there is a no win on. I came on the school board 7 years ago, and one of my biggest concerns was our structure of our middle school. And should it be a separate section off the high school and 7th and 8th, totally separated out or different things, but I never felt we should have 8th graders in high school with the system we got right now. And it hasn't been an opportunity to do it, and I keep hearing everybody say this is where we want to go, and we keep kicking the can down the road. It's been at least 10 years of this, having 8th graders at the high school. Will changing them to a middle school solve all the behavior options? No, it will not. But we'll probably put them in the peer group that seems to work better as to make that work. So to go and say we want to do this, but let's go wait another year, I think this is the opportunity right now to address that situation. Say we're going to get this figured out and we're going to make it work. I don't really care My vote tonight will be on anything options 3 or 4. I will vote no on any option 1 or 2, because I believe that strongly that 8th grade needs to get out. And this is my last year to make a difference on a vote towards that, but that's not what's driving it. It's because I believe it's the right thing to do to get that out of there, let things fall together. I consider the pros and cons of 1 and 2 as far as grade configuration, other than the 8th grade not being in there, because I see the advantages of having 2 separate K4, K5. I see the advantage of having grade level centers, and they weigh very strongly both ways, and depending on who you are, you're going to feel very strong. I can live with either one of them, but to me, the top priority is going to be, in my vote tonight, is get the 8th grade out of the high school. So that's how I'll be voting tonight. Regardless, I'll support any other 3A, 3B, or 4. Thank you.
Ms. Stift?
I have a question related to what Mr. Dierk said. I also feel strongly about getting our middle school back to 6 through 8. So I'm just wondering, Carson, if you could expand on why option 3A or B would not work. And I know the administrative team wants us also to get through 6 through 8 middle school. So what do we have to do to get there? What are we waiting for? What can we put into place to make that happen if it cannot happen next year?
Mr. Bagel, would you mind joining us up here? He's sort of the principal representative to help answer questions. I will answer your second question first. Because of room capacity at the Sunnyside and Burnside, to make a 6-8 middle school work well, we would need either fewer kids or more classrooms. That's what it comes down to. So we just don't have enough rooms at Sunnyside and Burnside to make it work well with 3A and 3B. So you see the cons there. Not enough space to offer early childhood programming, preschool childcare, center-based programming for special education services, or any additional classroom spaces. So we're sort of boxed in, and that could create some unanticipated problems. That's our biggest concern, or at least my biggest concern. It's a little different for the option 4, which is an attendance zone option. Again, the one concern about that is that we already have 24 spaces at Burnside that would be needed there. So what would happen if the transportation lines are drawn and all of a sudden we need an extra classroom or 2 at Burnside? That would be a problem. I don't anticipate that would be happening. Or if we come down to class size needs. Suddenly we have a need to hire 1 extra teacher at Burnside because of class sizes, that could be problematic. Well, that's my view anyway with the second question. But
yeah,
maybe Mr. Bagel can add to that and also answer.
Yeah, actually, I think you did a pretty good job. But really, we ran all of these scenarios. We ran building maps with all of these scenarios. And we're getting, to Arlen's point, I don't think any of us wants a 5-7 middle school. The issue and the reason that happened in the first place was literally just because of space, because the one building that we really had space was the high school. Sunnyside and Burnside were overfilled, packed. And so that's why it happened. We're getting close, I think very close to the point where we can reasonably accommodate K through 5 in whatever scenario between Sunnyside and Burnside. But when we ran all of this, we are literally right now at any of those K5 scenarios, we are using every available space at Sunnyside and Burnside with 0 wiggle room. And I mean 0 wiggle room. So we like Carson mentioned, if we're K5 attendance zone schools and we have to add another class because we have numbers that are off at one of the buildings, we don't really have anywhere to put those. It would mean impacting special education, impacting specials. We would have to, whether we're looking at art on a cart, whether we're looking at doubling up case managers, and I can hear Marcia over my back shoulder cringing as I say that. Especially in this COVID era, we have seen that we've had more students that have had a higher level of dysregulation this year, and they need a space to be able to work through that, and that takes time. And that doesn't work very well when you have a teacher trying to work with a small group on the other side of a partition. So that's just one example. And so that was why our recommendation was not, even though we're close, was not at K5 at this time. We also, I don't think, know what the impact is going to be next year, just in terms of as we move, hopefully, past the pandemic stage of COVID. We don't know what that might mean in terms of, are we going to be having some students coming back from Five Rivers Online into our buildings? That might have an impact. We also don't know what the impact, I guess, the other direction potentially could be with the charter school opening. So our recommendation was based on, there are a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncontrollable variables right now. And as much as we'd like it to be a 6-8 middle school, we felt that maybe next year is not the year to do that. The other reason is a principal team, the other concern that we had, and we talked a lot about discipline at the high school, and you've all heard about some struggles with 7th grade. But I also, if we go to 6-8 next year, that 7th grade class were in an elementary school last year, they were at the high school this year, they'd be at the middle school next year. So for some of those students, that would be their third school in 3 years, and that was a concern for us as well. So those were kind of the reasons. That's where our recommendation came from. We very much want 6-8 at the middle school. We just ultimately felt like there's a lot of risks involved, and in the end, if that's what you all decide to do, we'll make it happen. I don't want to get to August and find out that we've got some significant problems, because that's not the time to be notifying families.
No.
So that's kind of it in a nutshell, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Buck, you're up next.
Okay,
You want to hang out?
Sure, I'll hang out. Why not?
Nice try.
Thought I saw my window.
This new grant that the city and the school partnered with the SAFE. Is any of that going to be able to, with transportation? Like, what will be available to us for transportation for that part of grant, or?
None of it is. It's all changing, for example, crosswalks, sidewalks, and some of those projects.
Yeah, I can actually speak to that, because it kind of came out of.
For the school district.
Yeah, so this grant was specifically, it started, I don't know, a year and a half ago with an engineering study. And it started out of wanting to look at developing school zones around Sunnyside and Burnside, since they're both buried right in the middle of the neighborhoods. Silly me, I was naive. I thought that just meant you bought some signs, you put them up, you called it a school zone. Oh no, you have to do an engineering study, you have to go through all these things. So we've been doing that over the last year and a half, 2 years, and then submitted the grant. So that grant money is specifically to pay for all of the signage, improvements to intersections, everything that goes with school zones. So unfortunately, it would not be available for something like that.
Well,
Thank you.
I mean, if we I know maybe the busing company, it kind of affects, but like incentives, if we get like proper walking ways to school and stuff like that, is this what this grant is going for? Maybe encourage more walking, and then part of the healthcare team with the teachers, they can be like focal points where children can meet and like, good job, keep going, here's some water, Maybe.
Yeah, and we have in years
I'm trying here.
pre-COVID, which feels like about 1,000 years ago, we both at Sunnyside and Burnside had a bus stop and walk to school, and so we did that on a monthly basis when it was warm enough to do so. And then unfortunately COVID hit, and it kind of hasn't happened since then, but we'd like to get back to some of those sorts of things. And I actually just met this last week with David Anderson about some things around Earth Week, and we talked a little bit about that, about walking to school.
I was wondering who was reaching out to the school district.
Yeah, so I had a meeting with him last week. Yeah.
Ms. Rowe?
A couple of things. One is whatever plan we choose, and I can go, I see advantages and disadvantages to all of them. As a parent, I did have 3 children in 3 different schools, and so they had 3 different schedules, and we were running around all the time. But we made it work, and it was, I'm here to say I lived through it, and it was fine. So is it ideal? No. Was it really fun when my kids were in the same school? Yeah, because they got to see each other in the hallways and big sister. I mean, that was kind of a big deal for my kids. So, being in the same school, I see those advantages, but I fully understand the districts and the administrative's recommendation as well. So, I can see it both ways. So I'm supportive of both. What my biggest concern is too many changes and transitions. Whatever's chosen, I think we need to be committed to sticking with that for a while. And to nobody's fault, we had to switch a lot of things for COVID, and we had to do that. And I think our district and our families and our students have risen to the occasion, and we did what we had to do. But, I hate to make a change for next school year and then make another change for the next school year. I really want to see something stick. And whatever option we choose, I really appreciate how you really honed in on the one grade, because if we moved 8th grade back to 7th, that would be just a tremendous amount of craziness for those students and their families. Different schedules, where am I supposed to be, and a whole nother building and learn. That's a lot for kids and families to have to go through. So whatever we choose, I just want it to stick. And when we think about school starting times, I know we're not going to decide that now, but it is part of the overall equation. And I think we need to stick to something. We went from one thing to something different this year. We go back to next year. It's going to put everybody in chaos one more time. And, we've been in chaos enough. And I think whatever we can do as a district to provide some consistency, I think we need to do that.
But this is not, we're trying to prepare these children for life. That's not life. Consistency isn't life. We need to be able to do it as less traumatizing as possible. He's getting these children to acclimate, not that way. It's just the ripping back and forth. We need these children to be able to go from one situation without being traumatized. And I think easing and the leaders and it's a system, and I wouldn't, that was really, really good information you just gave us, because I would have never thought of that in this moment with all the information. That was huge for me, because I'm traumatized.
That's why I came, because and Pam, I think, highlighted it. We recognize there are distinct advantages and disadvantages to every one of these scenarios. And we also recognize that this is a difficult decision to make, a decision that no matter what decision is made, there are probably going to be people that are happy about it. There are probably going to be people that are unhappy about it. So we recognize that this is not easy, and that there's no, if there were a clear as light, this is the direction to go, we probably wouldn't be sitting here discussing it today. So we do absolutely recognize that as an admin team.
And always offer anybody to run for school board too.
Your inbox too can be full of it.
I have a comment for,
okay.
hand raised, yeah.
My hand raised too?
No, yours wasn't, just
My hand, I raised
You're,
my hand.
yeah, I don't have you in there anymore, but
Yeah, no, I was in there and then I pulled out and put back in so you'd see it.
My hand's not raised.
okay, it is. Yours is. So was mine. I put myself in the list. What have I took it?
Just curious, I just want to make sure I'm there.
Yes.
Says you're
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, so I have a whole lot of thoughts. For this year's 7th graders, one of the thoughts that I've had, has been that that's a lot of moving them back and forth. If they were to go back to a middle school next year, if 8th grade is in next year's middle school. And I can see that could be problematic. I also wonder, though, if some of the issues that we're seeing with that age group is because they need more support that they might be more likely to get in a middle school setting than just saying hey, you had such an awful year here this year, just keep on going, You know, or where they're in with, you know, a lot of other ages. And so I don't know, like, I honestly, I go back and forth on it, whether, you know, what's the best for those particular kids. I think, you know, I don't know. It just, I guess, if you could share your thoughts about, or, you know, any of the admin team about that particular age group, you know, that group, that bouncing around the pros and cons of that, do you feel that there would be a benefit? Am I just making that up in my own mind? Because I want this on the back. You know, to them going back to a middle school environment where they can have a do-over, I guess, maybe, of that middle school before they're sent back here and, you know.
Sure, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, I don't know that I'm the person to answer that. You know, up until 2 years ago, I was a kindergarten through second grade principal.
Yep.
So really my level of work with that age group is really minimal. I'm hoping that behind me that Jen Grove is hopefully walking on. Look at that, it worked.
Yeah, nice. No. Hi there, thank you for your questions. I will tell you that just personally, I would have some significant concerns with bringing the 8th grade back down. A number of reasons why. One of them is because of that adjustment back and forth. There were 152 kids that are currently in 7th grade that don't have referrals, so why would we push them back down to the middle school for the 8th grade? Second of all, I would be concerned about the level of support that will be provided because there have been some extra staffings and things like that have been hired for the high school. And so we would really have to be considering how we would pull those kids, you know, pull that staffing back down to the middle school to support. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if that's clear enough for you. I would also be concerned about the staffing that goes back and forth between the high school and the middle school. Because one of the things that has always happened is that there's been that crossing back and forth, and that could end up costing more money for us because we would have to provide, say, 2 sections of science at the same time at the middle school, right? So we have a science teacher we would split between the middle school and the high school. Mm-hmm. And in order to make that work within the schedule, we would have to have like a 0.4 or something like that. But that would cost us some money too.
Okay.
I think I said that right.
On the last one, though, I think we're gonna have a lot of crossover regardless. If we have just 7th grade there or 7th and 8th grade. Just to clarify, I don't want people to assume that, you know, there won't be any crossovers because there will be regardless. But there are impacts as far as how many classrooms are needed, and like you said, we need 2 science classes at the same period, that kind of thing.
So my other question is, it's not really making sense to me. The differences between like the 2 option 3s and option 4 with like those number of rooms available that, so when you say like Sunnyside, early childhood through 4, 20 plus rooms, 17 rooms needed, that is not including early childhood. So
You talking about option 4?
Yes. Because I'm trying to look at, like Arlen, I also would really like our middle school to be 6 through 8. And I think we've heard from the elementary teachers, the 5th grade teachers, that 5th grade should be at elementary. So, you know, my thought is, if that's what we want, if that's what our goal is, like, how can we get there? What are the things that we can do? So looking at option 4 as a way to sort of make some of that happen. I'm just wondering how it's more possible in option 4 when we're including early childhood, where in options 3A and 3B, it's not included. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, it's actually a very good question. And unless Mr. Pago or Ms. Grove have a response, I can say one thing is the reason that we put 3 5th grade sections at the height or at the middle school is to avoid the maxing out how many rooms are needed at Sunnyside.
Sure.
So because if those were also at Sunnyside, then we'd be at 20 and 24. And that means we have 0 wiggle room If
Right.
you need to hire that extra teacher or the transportation zones they don't work out.
Right.
So to be proactive, the thinking is that we would put 3 fifth grade sections in.
So when, you said earlier though, that we couldn't have, that there wasn't really room to have 6 through 8 at the middle school. It would work in option 4, like in option 3A and 3B, you're saying that there's not enough wiggle room. We could end up in a bad situation in August, not having enough space. Does option 4 work, or is that also too tight?
So I would just say, so when you look at the rooms available and it says like 20 plus for Sunnyside and 24 plus, really the max without impacting other programs like special education, like our specials, are 20 and 24. So when you see on any of these options, so like on option 3A, you see rooms needed 20 at Sunnyside, 24 at Burnside. It's still that same issue. We're maxed out. With option 3B, you've got a room at Sunnyside, you actually would be over that 24 at Burnside. And then with option 4, you'd have some wiggle room at Sunnyside to add early childhood classes if we were able to, but you're maxed out at Burnside at 24. So it's not necessarily, it may be in one building or the other, but you still are running really close to that maxed out in those buildings. And again, if that's a decision of, rolling the dice and hoping that the numbers work out, there's a decent chance they could, but there's also a chance they might not. So, yeah, so anytime you see 20 or 24 in either of those buildings, you're maxing out without impacting other programming.
Yeah, I was more looking at that 17 rooms needed out of 20 at Sunnyside. That, to me, that gives us the wiggle room. And so I wanted to see, like, am I seeing that correctly?
Yeah, that would be the K4 number would be 17, so it would give us some room to add early childhood sections. The 24 at Burnside would be the concern, you're maxed out at K5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And of course, that's all assuming we had exactly 4 sections.
Yeah.
In each grade at Burnside.
And not to confuse matters even more, to add a 5th option into the mix, but do you see any difference in the number of rooms needed? Whether by the previous sheets, it looks like no, but between essentially what would be option 1, option 2 of whether it's grade level centers or it's attendance zones, right? Like with grade level centers, we maybe don't need quite as many, or we don't at Sunnyside. Sorry, that was not a very clear question. It's not a very clear issue.
I think I know what you're getting at.
Thank you.
Option 1 and option 2 would need approximately the same number of rooms, whether we're grade level centers or whether it is 2 early childhood through 4th grade schools, would need approximately the same. The one factor that could change that, as Carson has alluded to, is if we have, depending on the attendance zones, if you end up like we did this last fall where you had a grade level that was kind of out of whack and you had a high number of students in that grade level and you potentially needed to add an additional section. But which would be what, option 2? Yeah, there would be room at each building to add those sections as well.
To add sections or put early childhood programming.
Correct.
And that's
Correct.
if 5th grade is
Yeah.
there. Essentially.
Option 2 would be 5th grade.
Yeah, either 1 or 2.
Right.
It's contingent on 5th grade not being there. That's what gives it the room.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll stop, Randy. Mr. Bryant, you're next.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm gonna say something that you may not agree with, but I just don't know, I respect the heck out of you. We had the people come and speak to us, majority of them wanted option 2 at that time. Great. I'll be wrong. Grade centers, EC4, K4, K5, whatever, option 4, with some classes at 5th grade at middle school, 6th through 8, plus a few 5th graders can be my hope tonight, or anytime. I think it's time to 6th grade, 6 to 8 gets get back in the middle school, but maybe move some 5th graders there. But you hit the nail on the head earlier, Mr. Pagel, we don't know what the unknown is. Our ADMs are going down every year. We should be worried about building that up. Just trying to figure out how we're gonna move kids around here. We need to work on getting more kids into our school and not losing more kids. And I said at the last meeting, I went to school here for 13 years ago. I never got held back. I went kindergarten through 12. And I went to 6 different schools. I never moved. So I get the idea where people don't want to move back. But it is what it is. Things change. We can't move somebody around because they move, keep them in a school. They may have to move to go to a different school. We can't control that. So I think we can make it work. I'd like to see us make it work. If we have to do 1, 2, or 3 classes of 5th graders at the middle school, that keeps us in the kids staying with the same teachers, the same environment as much as possible. K through 4, K through 5, however you want to do it, with 6 through 8 at the middle school, and maybe a few 5th graders going to the middle school at 9 through 12. You hit the nail on the head earlier. Somebody said about resources, bringing people from down there. Yeah, we have 2 assistant principals and a principal here for 6 grades. Somebody's got to go down to the middle school, it sounds like to me. So, because now you only have 4 grades here. So, but as to starting times, I'm willing to wait on that. I think we're gonna have so much, but I appreciate everything you've done. Don't get me wrong, you know, I think the world of you guys and all you've done, but I think for getting something done to get some more stability here for everybody here, because it's been a tremendously wearing year on 2 years on everybody. And no matter what, somebody said earlier, we're gonna make it, whatever decision we can make, just like some of the other ones we made the last 2 years. Some people are gonna like it, some people aren't. You know, everybody has their reasons, and I respect that. But we have to make a decision that's best for the school and the kids. So that's my take on it. So I think we try to make it work, because I think the charter school is probably gonna hit us worse than we think at this point. But we won't know more. We'll know more now, or the online. So thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to really thank you, Marcia, for being an advocate for our students who are probably one of the most marginalized groups. They are in the small classrooms. They're in classrooms where other kids are learning different things right next to them. They're constantly disrupted. And we say things like, yeah, but you know, we might not have the space for them anymore. I don't even understand what that means. Like literally in my heart, I don't understand what that means when people say we might not have the space for them. Oh, it's okay if they double up. They can use a partition. I don't know how many of you have taught students with special needs or been in a room with them for more than, you know, if you have a family member with a child with special needs or you've had your own. Putting several students in a classroom together is not easy. And then when you say to them, oh, you know what, you take the closet. Oh, and you get that closet over there. And if you need to problem solve any of your stressors, we'll find a space in the hallway so every kid can watch. It's unacceptable. I mean, so thank you for sitting at the seats and talking about this, because this is the issue of our time. There is no federal law that mandates minimum wage for a person with a disability. They don't get $15 an hour. They don't get $7.25 an hour. They go to a job site, they're lucky to get $3 an hour. If they have a hardcore disability, they're lucky to get 35 cents in some places. And if you follow the Goodwill, or if you follow some of those places where they work, it's atrocious. So once again, we say as a district, oh, but that's okay. You just go in that little corner room over there, and we'll try to do the best we can. When we talk about spaces, when we talk about we'll have to move some kids here and some kids there. I don't understand what the conversation is if we know that's our reality. If we know that's what we have at every table, what's the conversation? It should be how to help our most marginalized learners become the best they can be because we know life is set against them from the get-go. You know, we haven't had families in schools for 2 years because we haven't allowed them. So how do we know what a PTO could look like? How do we know what families might want to come in and be at the first grade level center or the kindergarten? You know, we don't know what that's going to look like because people will be excited to come back into school. And I know when my son was in grade level centers, Sunnyside and Burnside, I had a blast getting to know all of the kids that were in his class. Not just a handful, but I could see every little pumpkin that was come out of classrooms. And I'm like, oh, I used to know their mom, or I knew their sister, or, oh my gosh, they're so cute. Were they? That's part of being in a grade level center. That's part of being equity. So the conversation really is about meeting the needs of our most marginalized learners and building from there. If that means we keep 8th grade out of the school for one more middle school year, and we make the plan to get them back because you have said that's what will work, then that's what we do. And we have 20,000 emails, hate, love. I love all of you for responding. You can see me at the grocery store and throw an apple at me. It doesn't matter. Eggs, apples, tomatoes. But that to me is the conversation. That's what's at the table.
And so you're not comfortable with the options that get too close to that maximum number?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Okay. That's weird. Okay.
And I've taught in the closet.
Right. Yeah.
You change diapers for students and you need every space available to go in and, I mean, it's a real world.
With a multitude of needs.
With a multitude of needs and
Yes.
human
We
souls
have
that
been put
need
on
it.
the back burner, like we just all discussed, how much funding we're lacking for our special needs. And then here, they're the ones that can just shuffle around. But in all actuality, the things that are provided for our special needs could benefit the entire district.
Exactly.
And
What's
learning
good
from,
for the,
yes.
what's good for the hardest learners, good for all.
Yes.
Ms. Tift. Kind of along those lines in terms of the grade level centers versus the attendance zone schools. Can you, I know we've gone through this before, but we've heard from many families that really feel strongly about the attendance zone schools because they have the idea in their mind that it'll be a neighborhood school. When in reality, in Red Wing, we cannot provide that neighborhood school. So I understand why option 1 is the recommendation, but can you, in your words, explain to us and to our community why option 1 is the best for Red Wing?
Sure. And I guess maybe the way to tackle that is just to talk a little bit about concerns with option 2. Because I'll be the first to say, I mean, my 20+ year teaching career, the bulk of that was at the fourth grade level up. You know, I taught 4th grade for several years in this district as well as in California. I worked in a setting for day treatment with middle and high school students. So I really genuinely enjoy having older students in the building. It's been really fun. You know, I think the concerns, I guess, are kind of twofold. Number one is, and I think you kind of hit on it a little bit, is, you know, for a long time, I think even we were talking about this in terms of neighborhood schools. And the reality is with the location of Sunnyside and the location of Burnside and only having those 2 buildings in town, we really wouldn't have neighborhood schools. Sunnyside would function more like a neighborhood school. Burnside, just purely because of its location, would not. So one of the concerns I think with that is, again, we wouldn't know until we had the zones run. But my guess would be that we would end up with families that have students that live significantly closer to Sunnyside that would be bused to Burnside. And so that's part of the dynamic. You know, another concern is just, I think in terms of, in every respect, demographics and equity. You know, you're going to have schools that potentially look different just because of where some of our pockets of students live in the community. And so, again, with grade level centers, really having students have the opportunity to interact with students from all walks of life whether we're talking, racially or socioeconomically, whatever, would be much more equitable, I think, in grade level centers. And that's not insurmountable by any means, but again, we would just have to take a close look at resources and where those resources are at. And we're already seeing some of that just in terms of our free and reduced lunch counts between the buildings and some of those things. So, those are a couple off the top of my head. Do you have others?
I would say too, just being able to spread out our resources for special education and Title I in equitable fashions. That would be another reason why one would be better.
Yeah, good point. Having said that, I may or may not have at the concert last week said if principals were allowed to have favorites, mine might be fourth grade. So I'm not trying to throw fourth grade in the bus, but then I did reiterate that principals aren't allowed to have favorites. That's the longtime fourth grade teacher in me calling out, sorry.
You're allowed that.
I think that up pretty good.
Uh-huh. Thank you for reading through my incoherence as well, by the way. Too many thoughts that can't articulated. All
I
right.
do think that Mr. Bryant said it well earlier. There are no easy answers. There are pluses and minuses to everything we do, regardless of what we do. Well, first of all, our kids are going to be fine, regardless. Kids and their families are going to be fine. But there will be people upset regardless of what we do.
There are people upset over COVID, there are people upset over the busing, there are people, so it's hard to,
Were you back in the queue?
No.
No, okay. Just want to make sure I'm not.
Did you want me to read? I mean, I could, if you want me to.
Uh-huh. Who wants to go first? I will make a motion to approve option 1 for grade configurations for the upcoming school year as presented. With the comment that I really would like to see 8th grade at the middle school, but I think not this next year.
I'll second.
hear
All right, any additional discussion?
I think I'll just, I've been on the personnel committee for several years too, and we've always talked about targets, how many students we want in a classroom. And I do have to say that with the grade center, the grade level centers, it is a lot easier to meet those targets. But, I've been in the trenches there, and I do have to say that, if we do have to add a teacher, that helps a lot to have them all in one building.
And I think it's more equitable because Mr. Pagel provided me with the floor plans of the school. So I could see, and I listed out the square footage of all those rooms, that the rooms in Sunnyside are smaller typically than the rooms in Burnside. So if you have smaller bodies in there and you have smaller class sizes, whereas when you have 5th graders, 4th graders in that building, you're going to end up with fewer kids in a class, which, hey, is great, but it's not really equitable for that same grade level at a different school. So, any other discussion? Yes, Mr. Bryant.
Thank you. No matter how this goes, which I think I know how it's going to go, I still think we're looking at basically a Band-Aid to something that we're going to change next year. Yeah, let's make a change. I would rather see the change now and live with it down the road, because if this passes the way the motion's on the table right now, that 7th grade class next year has to know sooner than later that they're not coming to the high school. They're going to stay another year at the middle school. With planning and busing, with scheduling, with this or that. So there's a lot of, I just think it's better to make the decision now that we know we're gonna make eventually down the road. And do it now instead of just pushing it down the road as quick as we can and making it next year, so.
I do think it's better though that if we do make this decision tonight, that at least for those grade levels, the following year that would be affected, it would be keeping them at the same school where they currently are for the most part. Hopefully, that would be the goal for those fourth graders who would become fifth graders, hopefully be able to stay at Burnside, and the seventh graders who would become eighth graders would hopefully stay at the middle school. So it wouldn't be a lot of switching around that following year. That would be the goal.
But option 4 does the same thing.
It doesn't, because this year's seventh graders or next year's eighth graders would go from here to the middle school.
But I think kids can adapt to change very quickly, so. But you still have your K through 4, whatever, K through 5 at Burnside and Sunnyside, those 4 graders will stay there, so.
But we actually need more space, if you ask me. It is a Band-Aid, but we need more space first because we're declining, but yet we want more students, but where are we gonna put the more students if we even have any more declining? So we either need to add on what a normal family would do if they have, or move. Move buildings, destroy one building and then, or no, we wouldn't destroy it, we would utilize it for another school.
Don't destroy a building.
No, but you know what I mean? We need to provide the space, and so I think this is the best plan as a transition for all students and staff. And like I said, we just need to focus on a building, and I'm with you, Jim and Arlen, I'm trying to get more people here. But we need to provide this space in order for them to be here. So.
I can remember the day where we had great neighborhood schools, the Washington, the Coles,
With like snow and
the
like
Sunnyside, the Burnside, and you had St. Joe's, all those neighborhoods.
Saints.
But we also had many more children in the school. But population doesn't increase that much.
All right.
Anyway.
We have a motion for option 1, made by myself, seconded by Ms. Tower. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
And that passes 5-2, sounds like.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you all very much.
You can stick around for more if you want.
I think we were close to the end of the agenda. But
Right.
Ain't done yet.
Wait for starting meeting time.
And I think, did you put your hand in or are you taking it
You know,
out?
I put it in for the next thing.
Oh, okay. As I did mention during the forum, I think there are things that I hope our administration and us as a board will look at from the feedback that the parents gave and see the parents who really wanted to have the attendance zone model. What are the things that they really want from that, and how in any way possible can we implement those in a grade level center? What kinds of things can we do to meet in the middle as much as we possibly can? Okay. Next, transportation, right? Are we?
We could decide 1 tier versus 2 tier tonight, or we could wait until.
That was a motion, we table it.
I
To the next
second.
Yes. 2 weeks.
This was
Whatever.
a bit much.
You got a second before this, non-debatable, now it's non-debatable.
Sorry, Jim.
Okay, so.
Motion
you
and second to table it to a future meeting.
There's one discussion on the table.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
All right, so that will happen at a future meeting.
It's just.
Excited about it, Jim.
Okay,
I'm assuming that you'd like to see a couple of options Yeah, as far as elementary starting first, high school starting first, now.
Just bring it back.
That's
Can't really debate it. No, you can't even, you can't ask questions.
Bring it back.
No, that's already done. That motion's done, so.
Well, no, it's
For the
respectful, it's
transportation.
stable until it.
All right. In that case, I think we're about done. Yes, Mr. Bryant?
If we're on future upcoming meetings with future
Yes,
topics,
that's what we're
thank you.
going to.
Nikki, I've just found out that the bills have to be presented by the 25th of March.
Ooh, that's
So I
terrific.
text Mr. Gog and I'm gonna talk to him tomorrow.
Okay.
If the board's agreeable, and you are, maybe we should look at trying to see if they'll come that Monday, the 21st,
Yes.
at a workshop, or even at a board meeting, if it needs
Okay.
to, or so we can find that. If not, we'll just have to come up with another date and call a special meeting or something. If you want to, you all want to have them come here?
I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Open the special meeting.
Okay, let's look, the 21st or that week,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Another thing that is not on our list, because I got confirmation after the packet, on April 4th for our workshop, we will have Terry Morrow from MSBA to talk about conflict of interest and serial meetings, open meeting law, those types of things. I am not sure, since those are topics that are all covered in our level 1 and level 2 trainings that we all did through MSBA. I'm not sure if he has like a standard presentation that he's going to give for that as a recap, but if there are any items in particular that you would like him to address, let me know and I will pass it on. He can have that heads up to incorporate any of those things. What I told him was that we had all, of course, been through those initial trainings, but that we would like a refresher and an opportunity for all of us to be able to have conversation and ask questions in our public space without being in violation of open meeting law, which he's here to talk to us about. I'm not sure if he will be joining us virtually. That's kind of what I would assume, or if he will be here in person, but that is to follow, and that will be for April 4th. Was there anything else that anyone wanted added, changed, suggested for future?
You said that was April 4th?
April 4th workshop, yes. So it'll be that and then our finances, which would be for February. Will be the plan for that. And then it is in here, the policy focus for next workshop, March 21st, is 600 through 608. So those are the policies to review. And we do have them plugged in throughout this. They're a little subject to change, of course, if we end up spending a lot of time on one particular policy, we might bump some to the next one. So the further down we get in that calendar, the more subject to change they are, but that is the overall plan for the year.
Once
Yes.
Vicki and I confirm that date, we'll let the two of you know. So
Okay,
we're not
perfect.
violating the open meeting law or
Yes.
serial meeting by letting everybody know.
Okay. Yes, that is perfect. And if necessary, we could shift some things. We could move those policies out of there so we have, because they would be easy enough to move out of there. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. All right. If there's nothing else to add to that, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Who's second over there? Okay, thank you. When there's too many voices on one side, I can't keep track. Okay, all of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. And that,
We
I
heard
said
you.
I twice.
Right away.
and that passes. So we are adjourned at 8:14 p.m. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Well done.
Nice job, team.
Oh.
Thank you.
I didn't